Hi, I'm Jen.
And I'm Cybil.
And you're listening to Every Rom Com, the podcast where we have fun taking romantic comedies seriously.
This week on Every Rom Com, we're talking love potions and spells as we return to the topic of witchcraft.
We'll take a look at a female auteur who serves as the writer, director, producer, editor, costume designer, production designer, and more on her highly stylized films.
And we'll look at the dark, obsessive, and dangerous side of romance as we discuss the 2016 film, The Love Witch.
Hey, Cybil.
Hey, Jen. Very excited to be here on podcasting with you today about witchcraft films.
Yes, I'm very excited too. The one we're doing today, The Love Witch, is actually one of my all-time favorite movies, and I have a lot of personal things to share related to it as well, so I can't wait to get into that. But before we get into The Love Witch specifically, I wanted to talk about films about witchcraft in general. And I wanted to know, do you like films about witchcraft? Do you have any favorites?
I am a witch, and I don't really watch films about witchcraft because most of them are kind of BS. And I can even watch them as just like, oh, this is fiction, but they're just done very poorly in general. Like the women are like just sex objects, or they're just like really mean, or they're like evil. And I don't like that representation.
Are there any that you have found like to your taste, or any that have just been kind of fun, like despite
I
those
will
drawbacks?
I will definitely discuss one in my double features that I think everyone likes.
Okay. So we're going to keep that one a secret. And are there any that are particularly egregious to you in like how they handle witches? Like, is there an example like of something you saw that were just like, this is terrible?
Oh my God, Practical Magic. That makes me want to die.
Really? Okay, this is interesting because Sophia really likes that movie. So what is it about Practical Magic that you don't like? I'm curious.
I just find that the way that they represent like kind of witchcraft is not in any way real, and also it's a very like it's so fluffy compared to the book. Like in the book is like a romance novel. It's just really not a well done movie in my opinion, and it has two people that I really love in it, but yet I super can't watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan, but I don't really have any huge aversion to it either. And I haven't even seen like Hocus Pocus, which everyone's talking about the sequel to that. Do you have any opinion on that one?
Okay, so I think people love Hocus Pocus because they're millennials, and for some reason it was a very like meaningful film to them in some way. I don't really understand it myself. I've seen Hocus Pocus, but I don't love it. And oh my God, that's like blasphemy. Every millennial out there is just cringing and freaking out because they don't understand why I don't like it.
Well, I've never even seen it, so there you go. But I do like a lot of films about witchcraft. Like I started practicing like witchcraft recently, so I don't have like a very like sort of a long history of studying witchcraft or like a reason to be upset at films that portray witches poorly. I think all the films I've ever seen with witches just basically intrigued me, even if the witches were like portrayed as a little bit evil or sexualized. I think I've always just found the concept of witchcraft intriguing. And some of the ones that I particularly have enjoyed are mostly recent ones, actually, or ones I've seen recently, like Bell, Book, and Candle, which we did an episode on for Every Rom Com, episode 3. That film is actually silly in its portrayal of witchcraft, but yet the imagery in it was still just very interesting to me and evocative. And so I really like that one. I like The Witches of Eastwick a lot, even though, I mean, witchcraft, it's certainly not anything accurate about what witchcraft is in that movie either. I think I mostly like that for the Susan Sarandon, Cher, and Michelle Pfeiffer, and sort of banding together as women.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, and like every film I've seen though with witches, except for perhaps like Disney movies, anything else I've seen with witches I've really liked. So I don't
Well,
know.
I'm glad that somebody is intrigued by witches. That's always nice.
What, like, I'm actually curious then too, like, do you think cultural representations of witchcraft got you into witchcraft, or what led you to
I will
become a
100%
witch?
tell you. I can tell you the exact moment I was like, this is for me. I was reading a book, and it was like a supernatural book, and the women in it were witches, and it was like portrayed incredibly well of like, oh, this is actually what I believe. Like, I believe that everyone has personal energy, and I believe that everything has energy, and you can, you can move it to your will. And I believe that we should not be doing any harm with that, because that comes back on us. And like all of that was represented in this book. And I was like, oh, so I'm a Wiccan and I just don't know it.
Nice. It's like so you found yourself in that book. And
Yeah,
was
I
it
was
like
like 16, and then I really like dove into like finding out what witchcraft was about in the way that I could understand it.
And was that book a fictional book or like
It was a
a
fictional book.
non-fictional?
Yeah, it was a fictional book.
Nice. That's really cool. Well, I have to say that The Love Witch is actually why I started practicing witchcraft. And as we talk about the movie, it may seem very strange, but this movie kind of had a bit of a magical power on me, which I will talk about a little bit later. But before we get started today, just a few notes. First, as usual, there will be a spoiler-free section at the beginning of the episode, and we will warn you when the spoiler section starts.
We'd also like to remind you that you can follow the podcast on social media. Our Facebook page is Every Rom Com podcast and blog. Our Instagram is at Every Rom Com, and our Twitter handle is at Every Rom Com Pod.
And as always, you can find the podcast at everyromcom.com, send us feedback at feedback@everyromcom.com, and if you like what you hear, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And now let's listen to the trailer for The Love Witch.
After Jerry died, the cops wouldn't stop harassing me. They couldn't prove anything. They actually thought that I killed him. Anyways, San Francisco got to be a really bad trip after you left. And that's when I remembered you had that extra apartment.
Hey. Hi, I'm Trish.
Hi, Trish.
Well, what do men want?
Just a pretty woman to love and to take care of them.
Love me. Love me.
What I'm really interested in is love. You might say I'm addicted to love. You want to take a girl up there now? You want some?
What is it?
I met this great-looking guy, and I used love magic on him. Then he got really weird on me. All these emotions started flowing out of him. Then he got really sick. What is it, Wayne? What is it, baby? What a pussy. What a baby. Wayne. Witchcraft is just a way of concentrating energy. It can only work with what's already there. I just use sex magic to create love magic. Sometimes it's almost scary how strong the love gets.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a bad trailer, but it's much better appreciated visually.
Well, I mean, the movie itself is, I mean, very much that way, but I'm pretty sure, and we'll get into that, I'm pretty sure it's designed that way.
Yeah, to be visual.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. I think it would be hard to make a compelling trailer for this film just with the dialogue, even though I think there are some parts that have really great dialogue, but go and watch the trailer yourself, people, for sure. Okay, so some basic information about this movie. The Love Witch came out in 2016. It was written, directed, and produced by Anna Biller, but Biller also edited the film, did the production design, the art direction, the set decoration, the costume design, the music, and I think even more. I might be leaving some stuff out. The movie stars Samantha Robinson as Elaine, the Love Witch, Laura Waddell as Trish, Guion Keyes as Griff, Jeffrey Vincent Parise as Wayne, Jared Sanford as Gayan, Robert Seeley as Richard, and Jennifer Ingram as Barbara.
The basic premise of this film is Elaine Parks, who is a witch, has just moved to a new town after a suspicious death of her ex-husband, Jerry. More than anything in life, Elaine wants to find a man to love her, and she uses witchcraft to help with that goal. During the movie, Elaine tries to attract and keep several men using witchcraft with disastrous results.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very simple plot for like a movie that has a lot of stuff going on in it.
Yeah, and I think you need that. Simple plot allows for complexity and
Yeah,
themes.
exactly.
Yeah. So there are so many interesting facts I could tell you about this movie. I've listened to the commentary on the movie, and I've listened to Anna Biller be interviewed on several different podcasts, which I will link in the show notes. And I really recommend too. This is a movie that bears further exploration into what the director's intentions were for real. So if you haven't gotten enough of it from our podcast, go and listen to Anna Biller give some interviews. She's a really interesting person, or check out her blog. So Biller has cited in several places 2 influences on the story of the Love Witch. So first, Biller said that she was reading a lot of self-help books on the topic of how to keep your man around the time when she was planning to write The Love Witch. And all of the books said that you have to love a man less to keep him so that the man doesn't feel suffocated. And so she was really interested in these books that were kind of blaming women for loving too much and trying to get women to sort of cater to men's fantasies. The second inspiration she cited for The Love Witch, second direct inspiration, was one of her favorite movies, the 1945 movie Leave Her to Heaven, where Jean Tierney plays a woman who loves too much with disastrous results. And in the special features on The Love Witch, she got more specific about this theme. She said, "This is a particularly female form of violence, loving people to death. And that's where I came up with the idea for The Love Witch." Biller also had wanted to make a movie about witches because she said, quote, "I think that in some way all women are witches, and that like witches, women are still seen as a threat today for their feminine traits." So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she also cited a number of other influences for the film, including The Stepford Wives for its treatment of the tyranny of male fantasy, and then just classic films in general. So something interesting about Anna Biller, The Love Witch is kind of often compared by some critics to things like exploitation films of the 70s, like Russ Meyer films. But Biller's actual inspiration is actually classic film from the 1920s to the early 60s. So in her work, she's trying to like echo the design, the lighting, the editing, and the formality of scripts that's used in classic films. And that's a big part of like why this film, even though it's like set kind of in a non-specific modern time, I mean, there is a cell phone in the movie, the film looks very vintage. It looks like it comes from another time.
Yeah, it does. And it does feel very, like, I know when I watched it, I felt those Hitchcock vibes, hardcore.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That's an influence that is also cited for this film. Yeah, especially the cinematographer, M. David Mullen, cites that the Hitchcock color films of the late 50s and 60s, especially Marnie, were visual influences on the film. So, yeah. So another thing that's contributing to the vintage vibe is that the film was actually shot on 35 millimeter film. And this is something I don't completely understand myself, why it's important, but I guess corrections were made to the negative. They weren't made digitally. So for all you like film tech geeks out there, that could be pretty impressive, I think. And in addition to filming on film, the cinematographer M. David Mullen used in-camera effects. So he did things like place stockings or Vaseline on the lens. He used rainbow diffraction filters in certain parts of the movie. Like these are all really like old school techniques. Basically, Mullen said in the special features, quote, "My job was pretty much to put myself in the mindset of someone in the early 60s making a movie and not bring in modern sensibilities in my decision making." So yeah, I love it personally. I wish more people were still making films like this. So, and then another thing that makes this film kind of unique is that both Biller and Mullen were using color to help tell the story. They chose colors very specifically for both the costumes and the sets. And they also used backlighting throughout the film. So you'll see like a pink glow or a red or golden glow sometimes.
I noticed the costume very heavily, like it's all very organized and designed. Like all of the pink hues are all the same throughout the film. You know, there's a lot of like yellows and purples, and they're also like very like muted tones, but bright in like the 60 in like a 60s version. You know, like if you're watching a 60s film or you're on like a 60s airplane or something like that, that's kind of the vibe that you get.
Yeah, she said she was using color like not just like as a visual thing too, but she said she told the Making Movies It's Hard podcast that she was using the color symbolically. So she's using it to tell a story and to be purposeful. And she also was telling them that she doesn't think of film as realism. She thinks of it as poetry. And she says that to get at emotion, she thinks it's better to use symbols than realism. So she has this whole philosophy behind everything she's doing, which I love. And so, like, another thing that was like classic film is the actors were shot with hard light. So, for some reason, this seems counterintuitive to me, but I guess when you use hard light in filming, it actually makes the actors look really glamorous and kind of like gets rid of flaws in their skin and so forth. It doesn't make much sense to me. Do you understand this at all?
I think it's because it blows them out. So if you think about like when you're on your camera and you make the lightness up really high on your filters, it blows kind of everything out.
Yeah, like I don't really understand how it works, but everybody does look fabulous in the movie, like flawless. So kind of beautiful. And as you caught before, Hitchcock was one of the references, visual references for the cinematography. But cinematographer also cited the Hammer horror and drama films from the 1960s and the films of Pier Paolo Pasolini, like in terms of the production design. So there's a lot of influences that go into the making of this film. And in addition to sort of these visual and filmic influences, Anna Biller did a lot of research on witchcraft to prepare for the movie. So she did reading, she attended rituals and classes, and she also engaged in solo witchcraft practice. And the movie took an enormous amount of time to make. I was listening to episode 8 of the Witch Wave podcast, and Biller confirmed that the film took about 7 years to make in total. Wow. So there was a couple of years spent on research and writing, several years on designing and constructing the props, costumes, and sets, and then about a year of shooting and editing. So yeah, the props, costumes, and sets, Biller did most of that all by herself too.
That's crazy. That is insane.
Yeah. So some of the things she did was she designed and hooked a wool rug with a pentagram on it, which took her like 6 months to make. She did the calligraphy for Elaine's entire spell book. And she made an entire set of Renaissance fair costumes out of silk that took her like a year and a half. And so the film was eventually shot in various California locations, including Eureka, Arcata, Van Nuys, Topanga Canyon, and Laurel Canyon. So that's just like the tip of the iceberg of what there is to know about the making of this film. It's a very rich vein. So before I give my little story about my connection to this movie, how did you encounter The Love Witch? And what's your kind of general opinion of it?
My friend Jennifer told me I should watch it.
Wait, me?
Yeah.
Me, Jennifer?
Yeah.
So when did I tell you should watch it?
I don't know, like probably our second or third podcast.
Okay.
You're like, oh my God, you should watch The Love Witch. And I was like, oh, okay. And then like you told me again, like a month later, probably. And I was like, all right, I'll go find it. Because it's not like it's like easy to find places. It's not like it's sitting in your library on DVD or something.
I mean, some libraries. And I think
no
it's actually
libraries in Vegas, and this is such a Vegas film, it should be here.
I think it's actually on Tubi right now, though, and it's been on Prime before and Shudder, so it is out there. But
anyway. At the time, so it was hard. And I watched it, and I was like, well, this is a movie. And I fast forwarded through a lot of it.
Really?
I was pretty bored by most of it.
Oh.
But then, like, it stuck with me. That's the thing. So, like, it stuck with me. And, like, I'd find myself thinking of stuff from it and being like, well, maybe it's, like, you have to give it another shot. And so I'm like, okay. So I'm back and I watched it again. And I was still mostly bored. But I started, like, seeing... I saw it as not, like, this, like, campy movie that just was... made. I mean, honestly, when you first watch this, people, like, you might just think to yourself, how did this movie get made? And why am I watching it? The dialogue is super stilted and everything. Like, I thought it was like filmed in the 60s, and then I was like, wait, they have cell phones. I'm like, okay, so I'm like, I had to go look up what this movie's about. And I also just found it was like, they're just weird. There was just some weird stuff about it that I was like, okay, so that's happening right now. And it's a heroine I really can't get behind. It's not like I like her. Like she's like a narcissistic bitch. I mean, that's really, she's clearly traumatized, but like it was not. And then I stopped watching it again and fast forward to the end. But then I still found that I wanted to see it again. So I sat down for this podcast and really like watched it.
Okay, and?
And I mean, I definitely appreciate this film and all the stuff that's around it. And I would tell people, if you want to watch a film that's very stylized, that's a lot of like love and effort has gone into, that has nothing to do, in my opinion, with real witches or how women who are witches should be thought about. But it also says something about, it's a very feminist film in many ways. Except for there's a lot of hatred towards each other with women.
Okay, so my impression of this is that you don't necessarily like this film, but you can find things to fully appreciate it.
I fully appreciate this film. It's for me, okay, I'm going to put it in the same light of Schindler's List. I don't like Schindler's List. I find it boring and contrived and trying to make you feel in a very Spielberg kind of way. But I appreciate Schindler's List. I appreciate the acting, and I appreciate the cinematography and the direction that it took. And I appreciate what it did for people and their emotions when they watch it. And The Love Witch stays in the same kind of realm in my mind.
Wow, I think this may be the only time that The Love Witch and Schindler's List have ever been compared in like somebody's review. So that's fantastic. That's amazing. And thank you for watching a film that I recommended. I always really appreciate it when someone, takes the trouble to watch something based on my say so. So thank you, Cybil.
Of course.
Even if it left you with weird impressions and not necessarily you didn't necessarily love it, but thank you for trying.
Of course. Well, and not, once again, it's one of those, I mean, it's a very, if you look at it in a certain sense, it's a very arty film, right? And there's a lot of times where you watch art, like artistic films, and you're like, I mean, I wouldn't watch it for pleasure, but I can appreciate this film.
Huh. Well, I'm about to tell a completely different origin story with this movie, so buckle up. Okay, so The Love Witch. So I believe I encountered The Love Witch on the Shudder channel when it was playing on Shudder, the horror movie channel. I was drawn in to this movie immediately. I think part of it is I really like vintage kind of looking things. I really like stylized things, especially like, with glamour and beauty and costuming and all of that. And I don't mind like kind of stilted dialogue if it's kind of got a retro feel to it. It really doesn't bother me at all. So I was already sold on the whole package as soon as I started watching it. And then the more I watched it, like just some of the cool things like close-up shots of her eyes with like the blue eyeshadow and stuff like that. Like the set and costume design where everything is so elaborate. The weird music, like everything just kept drawing me in further and further. And then this movie, it was a weird thing. Like as soon as I watched this movie, and we're going to get into like the darkness of this movie, it doesn't really make any sense that this movie was what brought me to witchcraft, but this movie got me interested in witchcraft. Okay. Like I think the first step was I decided I wanted to dress as Elaine, as the Love Witch for Halloween. And this was the first Halloween during COVID. So that would have been what, 2020?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I went about getting a cosplay of her. Like I got a red dress. I got the wig. I got blue eyeshadow. I tried to find the exact shade by looking at makeup tutorials online that tell you how to look like the Love Witch, which these exist, by the way. It tells you like the best shade.
I was about to say, did you just say that there are tutorials that teach you how to look like the Love Witch? That is magic.
There fully are. There's like, they tell you which lipstick, which blush, which eye makeup you should get. And I got as many of them as I could, like that I could have at affordable prices. And I got a little red purse that looks like her purse. I went and got myself the tarot deck. And okay, and this is the trippy, and I got myself rings and everything. And now I'm going to tell you a trippy thing. When I got ready in my Love Witch costume, I got the tarot deck out and I was going to get the cards that she holds in the movie. The very first card I pulled out of that tarot deck at random, not looking, was the Three of Swords.
Yes.
Was the Three of Swords that is always appearing in the movie over and over again. That fucking blew me away. Okay? That was weird. I just pulled it at random out of the deck. And I think that sparked something in me, that weird coincidence. And when I was walking around then as the Love Witch, just walking around my neighborhood because it was COVID times and we weren't going to parties, probably confusing everyone. Nobody knew what the fuck I was doing for Halloween, okay? But I just felt really powerful and I felt really good. And I think I never wear makeup, okay? I never wear makeup. I never like glam myself up. There was something that felt really good about glamming myself up and wearing this outfit. I felt like I was embodying something new. And the second card I pulled out of that tarot deck, by the way, was the Magician. And the Magician kind of means like someone who is, acting dynamically to make change in their life. And I had been really depressed in the months leading up to this Halloween, really depressed.
Mm-hmm.
After I pulled that Magician card, I started practicing witchcraft and like really honestly, and this is going to sound weird, okay? But honestly, the day I dressed up as the Love Witch, I was not depressed for months after that. Months. And I started practicing witchcraft, and that really started helping me relieve my depression. And depression has seeped back in the years since then, but I have not gone back to like that kind of stagnancy that I had before watching The Love Witch, dressing up as the Love Witch, and pulling those tarot cards. Okay, so this is a weird thing. Like, there's something I feel like almost powerful about my connection to this movie, and I don't completely understand it. And I'm obviously not trying to model myself after Elaine herself, the character in this movie. Don't be scared, people. But I really think Anna Biller's created something beautiful, and I feel like a lot of other women have also connected to this movie and maybe have been drawn into like exploring things about witchcraft through it. So that's my piece. And I've seen the movie several other times. I have a Love Witch poster in my house. I still have my cosplay stuff. I'm still looking to find some of the fabulous, like, large vintage necklaces that are portrayed in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I may invest in a version somebody made on Etsy where they kind of reproduced the large orange one that you see in the movie, kind of amber looking one. It just means something to me in a weird way, and not a way that's directly connected to this character because she's very dark and manipulative in ways that I'm not. But I feel a connection to it, and I'll talk more about also how this movie kind of embodies part of a shadow side of myself too, that I've kind of learned to love and accept and transmute over the years. Yeah.
All right.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about the cast and crew, and I have the honor of talking about Anna Biller, who I think is a fabulous person. She's the writer and director of this film, and as I said, did almost everything else on the film crew related. Biller grew up with an artist father and a Japanese-American fashion designer mother, and she was influenced early on by classic films. She studied art at UCLA, and then she got a master's degree in art and film at Cal Arts. And she told Ileana Douglas on the Film Scene podcast that she became a serious feminist also during her college days. And so one of the questions she was thinking about as a feminist and a filmmaker is, what is female visual pleasure? And she became really concerned with like portraying that in her movies. In the Blu-ray extras for The Love Witch, Biller said, quote, "I'm very serious about bringing female glamour back to cinema. I think that a lot of movies now are coming from a place of male subjectivity for the male viewer," end quote. I mean, I would have to pretty much agree with that.
Yeah.
Biller started her work with a series of shorts, 3 examples of Myself as Queen, Fairy Ballet, and A Visit from the Incubus. She directed, wrote, acted in, and served in numerous other roles on those shorts. I have yet to see them. They are available online, but like you have to either rent or purchase them. I don't think they're streaming anywhere where you can have an account right now, which is too bad. But I do intend to see them eventually. She also directed but didn't write a 45-minute film called The Hypnotist in 2001. It seems to have a similar style. And it was written by Jared Sanford, who actually plays the Coven leader in the Love Witch. So she's worked with him on a few things. Then her first feature film was Viva in 2007. And that one is another similar kind of vintage style, but this is actually set during the sexual revolution. And it's a critique of the sexual revolution of the 60s and 70s. She also acted in the lead role in that movie. So after The Love Witch, Biller was planning on making a film about the Bluebeard story. But instead, this has turned into a novel. I think she couldn't get funding together for the film, unfortunately. So she's written a novel, Bluebeard's Castle, which will be released by Verso Books in September of 2023. You can bet I'm getting myself a copy of it. And you can keep up with Biller's work in general, both on her Twitter, which is at Miss Anna Biller, and also on a blog that she keeps, which is a great blog. And I'll link to that in the show notes. She writes about her projects, but she also writes a lot of film criticism, and she really is a pretty knowledgeable person, and she really takes it seriously. A few of my favorite blog entries she's written include Let's Stop Calling Movies Feminist, and notes on I Spit on Your Grave. Someone encouraged her to watch the rape revenge movie I Spit on Your Grave because it was feminist, and Biller had her doubts, and she expresses how her doubts were confirmed in her blog entry in a glorious fashion. I just love Biller's writing on feminism and movies, and especially feminism and horror. Oh, and then finally, her latest blog entry, Anna Biller's latest blog entry from July of this year, says that she's developing a film called The Face of Horror, which will bring a classic Japanese story of ghostly revenge to a Western setting. So that would be awesome too. I hope that she manages to pull it together.
Clearly, this film has been talked about a bunch. Maybe it didn't have, like a great success financially, but usually even if somebody is doing something like this, they can still find some kind of funding. So let's go ahead and talk about Samantha Robinson, who plays Elaine Parks, the Love Witch. She grew up in both the US and London, graduated from UCLA, where she studied acting. First IMDb credit was on a TV show, Everybody Wants Theirs, in 2012. First feature movie called Misogynist in 2013. You can see kind of like a theme going on with her. Other work before The Love Witch includes a TV movie called Sugar Daddies and an indie movie, Labyrinths. Since The Love Witch, Robinson appeared in the horror movie Cam, in the small role of Abigail Folger in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and in a number of other indie and short films, including playing a lead role in the indie comedy Take Me to Tarzana. She's completed work on a few other indie projects, including 180 Days and Good Bad Things, and is currently filming a horror movie called Hauntology.
So we get into the movie now. And we get into this opening scene, this Hitchcockian looking scene of Elaine driving a red convertible down a coastal road wearing her red dress, looking fabulous. And this is the opening dialogue of the film. I'm starting a new life up here, where it's quiet and clean among the redwoods, and almost no one knows me. So that's an intriguing way to begin a movie.
Yes.
And and while she's doing this drive, we also start to see sort of flashbacks of Elaine's ex-husband, Jerry, who is dying after accepting a drink and taking a drink from it. Here's Elaine on Jerry. Poor Jerry. I had a nervous breakdown after he left me. They say I'm cured now, but I still have intrusive thoughts.
This is what I'm saying. People, when you listen to this, I swear to God, this is all true. This is what the dialogue is.
Well, what's wrong with it? I love it.
I'm just saying, make your choices as you listen. This is the dialogue.
Well, I love it. Like, you get the idea right away from these flashbacks. Like, Elaine, like, from just looking at the flashbacks that Elaine has clearly killed her ex-husband, right? Like, right away. While we're watching these flashbacks, though, you can also simultaneously be kind of taken in by Elaine's glamour, because she is incredibly glamorous looking. She has this beautiful, like, full black hair, black long hair. She has these blue eyeshadow. The title card for the movie, The Love Witch, is over one of her eyes with the blue eyeshadow and the big fake eyelashes. And these close-ups of eyes are repeated throughout the movie. And the eyes are kind of used also to draw in the men at first in the movie. And in the title card, I feel like she's drawing in the audience as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that.
So we have these flashbacks to Jerry dying, and then we also have these flashbacks to Elaine naked being initiated as a witch. So, and with her hands sort of tied behind her back. And another thing we see when she's first in the car, she sort of tarot cards sort of casually spill out of her red purse. And the Three of Swords is on top. And this card is depicted as a red heart with 3 swords plunged into it. And both the meaning and the visual of this card are important in the film. And then in this scene, the only action really that happens is she is stopped by a cop for, it turns out, having her tail light out. And we will also see the cop later in the movie. So everything kind of comes full circle in this movie.
Yeah, I actually felt that, like, this was that's the thing, like, I felt that, like, this was a well put together, like, you found out so much information so quickly. And it was like an information dump, but it wasn't in, like, dialogue. And I really appreciate stuff like that.
Yeah, and this movie is really cohesive. Like, everything kind of comes together, like, even though there's so many threads running through this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so Elaine arrives at her new house where she's going to live. I think she's supposed to be living in the town of Eureka. We see a sign for it at one point, and there's this like big, I don't know, Victorian, Queen Anne. I don't know
It's
what kind of
definitely,
house
well,
it
it's
would be.
probably Victorian Queen Anne. So, same time period, essentially.
Okay.
Just that the design would be more probably Queen Anne. It has like
Yeah,
turrets.
she arrives at this like elaborate looking old house with turrets, and she meets Trish, who's this kind of normal, average looking redheaded woman, and she's the person. She like designed the house, the interior designer, I think, and I think she
Yes.
doesn't own the house though. She's just like showing Elaine in for somebody else.
This whole scene is so weird. You don't have even talk about it here, but this whole scene was so weird to me. I was like,
Okay.
okay, so she walks up the stairs and she's like, hey, look at my room. That's all like witchy. And she's like, I designed this. Weird. I don't know why I designed it like this, except that that's how she wanted it. The girl who hired me. And, our love witch is like, it's perfect. And you're like,
Not in that voice.
I mean, it's close to that. Like, it's just like a bunch of weird naked people on the. It's like a super creepy room. I would have been if I designed this. I'd been like, so what weird stuff are you into? Seriously,
I like that room.
I'm not. I'm just saying. You, dear listener, decide for yourself. But I actually found that because of that scene, I was like, okay, 100% know what I'm in for this film.
Yeah, but as to like the production design of this room, yeah, it is very witchy. Okay, there's like all these like the pictures on the wall are kind of weird, admittedly, but they're also just vibrant and beautiful, and like they all go together, and like there's like antique objects and then like these really flashy, beautiful colors, and it is very 1960s looking. Yeah. I like it though. Like I don't know if I'd want to live in that place 24/7, but my eye is drawn to just like absolutely everything. And then Elaine's costuming too, like we've talked about before. She has the red dress, the red purse. She also has red shoes. Like she has this beautiful big vintage necklace. Like, yeah, it's just a feast for the eyes, everything. Speaking of feasts for the eyes, we then go to a tea room where Trish invites Elaine. And this tea room, does this exist anywhere?
No, absolutely doesn't.
Know.
It absolutely does not exist anywhere that I've ever been, and I've been a lot of places. And it is one of the weird. It's almost like I'm watching. When I first started like watching this section, I was like, oh, I'm watching like a Renaissance fair, but like a tea room version, where we're not in the Renaissance, but we're trying to like be a tea room.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a Victorian tea room.
Yeah,
and like there's only women there, and they're all dressed like in pink, like the same shade of pink, like you point out. Like they're basically wearing the same shade of pink, and like a lot of them are wearing hats. Elaine is wearing this like big fabulous hat with flowers on it, for example. And then there's like a harpist like on a stage like playing this little song.
Who looks like she's being held hostage. Like the whole time I was waiting for them to be like, and then we find out that everybody here is a sex slave. Like literally, I'm not joking. I really expected to find out that this place was like we were holding people hostage and they were sex slaves.
What? Why
Seriously.
would they be sex slaves specifically though?
Because like everyone looked really like weirded out, and yet had all this like they have all this like undercurrents of like sexual energy the whole time. Because apparently if you're a love witch, it's always sexy.
I did not feel any undercurrents of sexual energy in this scene. That's very interesting. Okay, yeah. Okay. Like for me, my eyes are drawn in this scene to like the accessories, like the teas and the cakes. Like this movie has so many cakes. If you watch this movie, I really recommend getting yourself a cake before you start the movie, because you will want to eat cake at some point. I'm not even kidding.
I don't think I noticed any cake, but I don't notice. Oh my god, that's not what bothered me. Apparently, it was just the sexual energy I was noticing.
No, it didn't bother me. I just wanted cake. So if you watch this movie, I really recommend laying in a cake, at least a piece of cake while you're watching it. Anyway, Anna Biller said that this whole like scene and this set design was supposed to represent a quote suffocatingly feminine world, and it's supposed to reflect Elaine's fairy princess fantasies. She also said that I love the idea of creating a cinema based on what I think might be women's fantasies, made just for women and their fantasies and the things that affect them in their lives. So for Anna Biller, like this represents this Victorian tea room does represent a type of feminine fantasy of wearing these beautiful clothes and eating the tiny cakes and having the tea and the harpist and all of that. Like I take it probably that none of this reflects something that you want.
No, 100% not.
I think there's part of me that is drawn to like the pretty outfits and the cake, but I think that's about it. I could leave the harpist behind probably.
I mean, it did seem
And
like a Barbie dollhouse kind of thing,
yeah,
Jane
yeah.
situation. So yeah, I can see that.
And then there's like a little bit of dialogue too between Elaine and Trish here. Okay, so I'll be Elaine in this little dialogue. Being here is like being a princess in a fairy tale.
Do you have fairy princess fantasies, Elaine?
Of course. We may be grown women, but underneath we're just little girls dreaming about being carried off by a prince on a white horse.
This
I,
is the kind of
I,
dialogue where I was like, oh my God.
uh,
Oh my God. Because all of it is like, in my opinion, like super inane. And it's like feels like I'm being beat over the head by like a principal instead of just being like having conversation.
okay, so it felt didactic to you
Yes.
in a certain way? Okay. So, and then I had a question for you. Do you or have you ever had princess fantasies?
I mean, I think we've all had princess fantasies, not as an adult, but when I was a kid, hell yeah, I had princess fantasies. But then you like,
Oh,
you get older and you're like, that's not reality.
so you did have, I didn't have princess fantasies. I can honestly say that. I never had like a fantasy about being a princess. I think I had mermaid fantasies a little bit from watching
Okay.
the movie Splash. Yeah, the
Yeah,
watching the
definitely
movie
a
Splash,
princess.
I kind of liked the whole mermaid thing. But you did have the princess
I
stuff. Okay.
100%. 100%.
And what did your princess fantasies like involve? Was it the costume? Was it the castle? Was it the
It was
prince?
definitely like a really frilly dress. So I looked like I looked like a cake, and I generally had a horse.
Okay. So you had the horse and the dress, not so much
Cool.
the prince.
I don't need princes. I don't care.
All right. All right. Fair enough. Yeah, I think the mermaid thing for me, like, it wasn't like the Little Mermaid, the Disney thing. That was after my time and I didn't really like that one. It was just like the power of being underwater, exploring something. I think I did want the man to, like, I liked the idea in Splash of like the mortal man loving me so much that he followed me into the water. I think that was pretty cool. The hair, the mermaid hair. But yeah, no princess for me. Yeah. So we both had these fantasies, but I agree, like those are things you kind of put away when you get older, and Trish has put that away. She tells Elaine a husband is not a prince at one point in this scene.
Yeah.
Like she needs to get real here. And Biller said that Trish is meant as a counterpart to Elaine. Trish wants to be herself rather than measuring up to an ideal image. And I think you see that in their costuming too, because we have Trish wearing like a pantsuit while Elaine's wearing the hyper feminine dress and so forth. To show a little bit more about the contrast between Elaine and Trish, I'm going to play a clip from this tea room scene. There are very few clips of this movie available on YouTube, so I'm just showing what I can find. So there's going to be this and one more, and then the rest is just going to be us trying our best. So here we go. This is Trish and Elaine.
Where were we? Men. You said we need to give them what they want. Well, what do men want?
Just a pretty woman to love and to take care of them and to make them feel like a man and to give them total freedom in whatever they want to do or be.
But what about what we want? How are we going to be equals with men if we keep catering to all of their needs?
I think that if you want love, you have to give love. Giving men sex is a way of unlocking their love potential.
You sound as if you've been brainwashed by the patriarchy. Your whole self-worth is wrapped up in pleasing a man. I'll admit I used sex to get this, but I'm not proud of it. The whole world doesn't revolve around a man's needs. If I gave Richard sex every time he wanted it, I'd be a wreck.
Poor Richard. He loves you, and he wants you, and you torture him. You have to give a man his fantasy.
His fantasy?
Yes, his fantasy. What I'm really interested in is love. You might say I'm addicted to love.
So what do you think about this dialogue between them, Trish and Elaine?
I mean, yeah, if I was in this dialogue, I would have been like, that girl is super crazy.
And by that girl, you mean Elaine
Oh
specifically?
yeah, no, Elaine's super crazy. I mean, and even Trish, I think Trish is like, I'm trying to understand you, Elaine, but like, because I want to be your best friend because I heard that we had to be, but also you seem insane.
Here's my approach to this dialogue. I think, like, in some ways, Biller is using this dialogue to bring forth things that have some truth to them about relations between men and women. Like, she was reading all these self-help books, right? And some of those self-help books are, I think, full of shit. And certainly they don't encompass everything about male-female relations. And certainly there are men and women who are exceptions to them. 100%. And my husband and I are examples of exceptions to these rules. But there are a lot of men, though, that like, to get them, quote unquote, you almost do have to become a fantasy. You do have to like give them what they want and kind of become brainwashed by the patriarchy. So I think there's like a weird truth in what Elaine is saying. And like, I can understand how someone would become like Elaine and start trying to behave in this way. Do you know what I'm saying?
I mean, I guess yes, I understand. And there are lots of women who like, this is the way they probably think. They just keep it more quiet on their inside voice. And, you know, those are women that I'm like, I don't understand you. Like, you can live a life without being, you know, manipulative to men or even needing men.
Yeah, I think this is what Billy's trying to get at, though. She's trying to show, like, how somebody could become like this.
Yes,
she's trying to show and what the end result of following this advice might be if you took it to the nth degree. At the same time, like, I don't really relate 100% to either of their viewpoints. Because Trish is like, thinking of sex as something that like is kind of burdensome, and certainly that has never been my experience.
No, but I see what you're saying. Also, that like you have to, but the both of them are talking about using sex to an end instead of just like using sex for their own pleasure alone.
Yeah, which I do not relate to because I really love sex. I use it for my own pleasure.
Me too. And that's why I think that's why that conversation, I'm just like this, that it seems so like foreign to me because I'm like, neither of these people sound like someone that I would hang out with.
But I've met women who are versions of both of them though. So they both seem real to me on some level.
Okay.
Like, I've definitely met women who like, they consider like sex as a means to getting married and like they like it sometimes, but like they mostly find it a chore. And I've met women who have like just sort of lost themselves in trying to find a man, like Elaine. Or who have like made themselves into this glammed up fantasy. I've met them.
Yes, I agree. I've met both those people as well. But do you think you've met them as intensely polarized as these two are?
No, but because it's their symbols on some level,
right? And that's what I'm saying. Like this, when you think about this film, a lot of it is not, for me, a lot of it is not like you're watching a film because you're like watching a plot unfold and there was a part of me that after, like, by the second time I watched it was like, okay, watch this for like the message that it's sending, the intricacies of the filming and the filmmaking, and less like, I'm going to like this film, but I appreciate it for what it is.
See, I do like this film, and I think it's because I like the symbols. That doesn't diminish my liking of it. You know what I mean?
Anyway. Yeah, I can understand that as well. But I think that I can understand why some people, when they watch this film, are like, "What the hell?"
And I also can kind of like, it's funny, like, even though I don't relate to either of these characters, I can also empathize with how people would become like these characters. So. And empathize with how difficult it can be to find long-term committed love and the shapes that people will twist themselves into to do that. Yeah. Anyway, so that's their little dialogue there. And then Richard shows up after they've had their little discussion, Trish's husband, and he's like there to see Trish. But we have this moment where Elaine kind of casts her eyes on him, and there's this boom sound or something. I can't quite do the sound. Like, is it like a harp or something?
I think it's a harp. I think it's like a harp in almost Discord.
Yeah. And that plays every time we see Elaine use her eyes to kind of cast I think it's a little bit of a spell too. Like, she has some kind of power just in her eyes to attract a man.
Yeah, she uses personal power, and she uses sexual personal power.
Yeah. And so we see the first inkling that Elaine will, potentially be interested in Richard too. Okay, so one thing I wanted to talk about is the line where the Love Witch says, "You might say I'm addicted to love," because that has a really like personal meaning for me. Like, when I say the Love Witch, in some ways the character kind of represents a shadow side of me. That's the part that I'm referring to. Okay, her intense need for love. Because when I was in my early 20s, I think I was about 21, I went to see a counselor after having kind of like a depressive breakdown. And she actually suggested that I might want to read up on love addiction. And I did ended up reading, I can't remember the name of the book anymore. It's been so long, but I read a whole book about love addiction and I really responded to it. And it really applied to a lot of the ways I had been with men, in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was things like just constantly pursuing men, maybe pursuing men even that I wasn't super interested in, but like for some sort of ego, needing to feed my ego or needing to feel like I was good enough, because I had a guy. Like the thing that led me to really see this as a problem was I started like sleeping with one of my friends' roommates. And like, the sex was okay or whatever, but I wasn't really in love with him. But then when he stopped kind of showing interest in me, I just broke down, like as if he had been like the greatest love of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt absolutely miserable and depressed, like I had been crushed. And it was just so out of proportion to like what that relationship had actually meant that kind of led me to question, like, what is my relationship to men? Like, what is this actually feeding? You know what I mean? So this movie speaks to like to me on that level. Like when I watch this movie, I feel like I'm watching, There But for the Grace of God Go I don't know. I just feel like I'm looking at my shadow self when I watch Elaine in this movie. Okay. And I never took anything to like a violent end, certainly like an other destructive end, but I definitely took like love to a self-destructive end at periods of my life.
Okay.
So yeah.
So maybe that's also another reason why you're somewhat drawn to it, because you, as you said, you see a bit of your shadow self in there, and therefore like it's speaking a language you understand and like are like, okay, thank you.
I feel like a lot of women, and maybe men too, though, probably have had a similar experience because, love addiction is like a thing that like a fair amount of people in this world experience. So I read up on it a little bit. Something like it said 3 to 10% of the population experiences love addiction, but in some groups it may be higher. Like people in their late teens and early 20s, they say probably about 25% of people like deal with symptoms of love addiction. Maybe because when we're younger, it's also intense and we're just kind of learning the ropes, we're still individuating at the same time. So I found that interesting. That statistic came from an article in Psychology Today, which I will link in the show notes. And like what love addiction is, according to this article, is, quote, a pattern of behavior characterized by a maladaptive, pervasive, and excessive interest towards one or more romantic partners, resulting in lack of control, the renounce of other interests and behavior, and other negative consequences. So I would say when I had these problems, it didn't get too terrible, but I definitely, like, you knew me in my 20s. I was always focused on a guy, right?
Yeah.
Like it was like huge. And if a guy wasn't interested in me, I felt terrible. And yeah, and I had like multiple romantic interests, which I no longer think is, necessarily a bad thing. Like now, I embrace polyamory and everything, but like at the time, I didn't even know what that was, but I was still, trying to balance different guys and all this type of stuff. Like I didn't get as bad as like I think probably like a serious love addiction would entail, but I definitely skirted the edge. I would just like I wouldn't pay enough attention to my school work, perhaps, like in favor of thinking about a guy or trying to get a guy. I would like, cling on to guys that weren't necessarily good for me or that like I wasn't even super interested in, but like I just felt like I had to be in some kind of relationship. So there's a whole spectrum of what qualifies as love addiction. And on the extreme ends are like people who remain in like seriously abusive relationships, mm-hmm. or people who stalk people, for example, like, or kind of the things that Elaine engages in this movie. So it's a whole spectrum of behavior.
Right.
Out of curiosity, I also went and did a self-assessment that I found online for love addiction by a licensed clinical social worker, Mark Falango. And technically, according to Mark Falango's self-assessment, I still have love addiction. So I don't know. Think of your listener.
Well,
make of that what you will.
We'll also see how many people take that and find that they have some love addiction.
Well, I mean, yeah.
I think a lot of it is also wanting to be wanted, wanting, seeing value in yourself through other people's eyes and less through your own belief in who you are. I think that is also part of a love addiction.
Yeah, so some of the questions I'll just tell you a few of the questions from the self-assessment. Do you get high from romance, fantasy, or intrigue? Like, and I would say yes to that. But like one of the other articles pointed out though that like just the experience of being in love newly like that causes addiction in many of us. So like
Because you have all the oxytocin and everything running through you.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So they do say that like there's sort of a difference between when you're first in love and if this is how you are all the time. Like so take that with a grain of salt. Another question is, do you feel desperation or uneasiness when away from your lover or sexual partner? And that one was hard for me to answer because like I think that depends for me. Like now with my husband, I can be away from him and I might feel like, oh, I miss him, but I don't feel like desperate or uneasy. I think if I'm first sleeping with someone and I'm not sure like, how they feel about me, yeah, I might feel uneasy being away from them. So that's a hard one to answer or to determine whether that denotes love addiction. What do you think?
I mean, I think I would definitely say that if you feel unstable in any relationship, so if it's new, you often feel like unstable, that yeah, you
Yeah.
might have feelings of like worry that like while you're away, they're all of a sudden they're gonna realize they're not into you or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I,
So
I do
yeah.
feel that there's like a line there.
Another one is, are you unable to stop seeing a specific person even though you know that person is destructive to you? And I would say mostly I am able to stop seeing someone, but like this it depends on your definition of the word destructive. Because I definitely think I've let myself be emotionally hurt by people longer than perhaps I should have, but I would never, or as far as I've experienced in my life, I shouldn't say never. As far as I've ever experienced, I've never let anybody abuse me emotionally or physically. I've maybe just stayed with guys who couldn't give me what I needed for too long. So yeah. But
Okay.
on the far end of love addiction, though, people will let the other people potentially abuse them.
Right.
Yeah, to have that relationship. And then let's see. Do you feel that life would have little or no meaning without a love relationship? Sadly, I answered yes to that. I
Well, but I
honestly
think a
feel
lot of people would answer yes to that. I mean, I literally sat in my hairdresser's, chair 3 days ago when I was getting my haircut, and she was talking to me about how she's on Hinge right now because she doesn't want to be alone anymore. So I think that there might be a line between, as humans by nature, we like to be together. We like to be in packs. We like to be with someone. The difference is, do you need it to be a super passionate and inflamed love relationship, or do you just need like to have someone? Do you
yeah.
need a person?
Yeah, like I still like ideally I would like to, feel like if something happens with my husband, like I would be fine. But like I honestly right now like feel like if something happened to my husband, it would be very hard for me to stay alive. I'd probably stay alive for my cat, right? Or like
Right.
maybe my brother. And I'm certainly I care about you and my other friends too, but it's like
It's different. I understand.
yeah.
I understand.
So sometimes I wonder too, like these questions do hold a pretty high bar. So I encourage you to go ahead and look at these questions if you're.
They do, and they make you think. That's for sure.
Anyway, that was a big segue, but like I just wanted to discuss this topic of love addiction because I think a
It's a
lot
good
of romantic.
topic. It's a good topic, and it is. I think one of the major kind of themes of this film is the idea of like, what is love? What happens when love is twisted? What is
Mhm.
healthy love? And what happens when like you become obsessed with it?
Yeah. And I also think too that like a lot of romantic comedies show people displaying at times rather unhealthy behaviors without questioning it and with even kind of normalizing it, I would
Mm-hmm.
say.
Yeah.
Like fixating on people or stalking people or like taking risks that might not be healthy to get people. So this movie is at least confronting these topics.
Very
Anyway,
true.
so after this section, we see a little sort of, I don't know, not montage per se. It's kind of a montage.
It is. I would say that this is a loose montage, right? It's to like speed up like a bunch of information.
Yeah, we see like this little montage of like Elaine doing a bunch of creating. So she's
She's doing
making
witchy
like,
things. Okay, let's just say what it is. It's a bunch of witchy things,
yeah, she's
right? She's like making
painting.
herb pouches and dolls and soaps, and she's like, "Yay, look at me doing stuff."
Yeah, she looks quite accomplished at this
Yes,
too.
she
Like
does,
she
and like
looks,
happy doing it.
yeah. And then we see her after that. She performs a love spell. She says, "Goddess, please send me a beautiful, sweet man to love me as I love him. To love me, love me, love me, love me, love me, love me." And she's so sad when she's saying this. And we see her lying on this pentagram rug and like we see her from above and it gets closer and closer until we just see her lips and She just seems so sad and desperate in that moment, not happy like when she was making her products.
She does. So, and that's one of the things I thought was interesting about this. So here she is essentially doing like what we would consider like, you know, householdly things and creative things and stuff for herself, right? She's painting in herbs and pouches and dolls and whatever. And she's trying to be a successful businesswoman. By the way, she's an entrepreneur, right? And then we move into like this sadness of her being, you know, like, if I don't have a man, why am I, that's what I'm all doing this whole for anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it is a very kind of sad moment. And I did like the dichotomy between the two where she seemed, that's why I said she seemed really happy while she was like creating.
Okay. And then we see her, like you said, she's an entrepreneur. So we see her and she goes and sells her products at the local New Age or Wiccan store. I like how the lady on her way out says, "Bright blessings."
I know.
Has anyone ever said bright blessings to you? Is this a
all
thing?
The time, man. All the time.
Seriously?
Seriously. For reals.
Okay, so this is like
it's
a
no
Wiccan
different
thing.
than right now where people are like, have a blessed day. And that happens all the time too.
So wait, is it like a Wiccan thing though, or an LA thing?
It's considered like, it's a very new agey thing. I'm not going to even put it in Wiccans. It's just like a new agey thing.
Okay. Yeah, I've never heard someone say bright blessings, and I really want them to now. Okay, so after she sells her products, she's wearing this like fabulous like black coat, like black boots look. She looks great. Guys are whistling at her as she goes down the street. But then she goes and sits on a park bench, and I love this. I love this so much. She pulls out like a little sandwich bag, and she's eating this like white bread sandwich and feeding pigeons.
Yep. Because that's what you do. Because she is all about catching men. This is her men catching rig.
See, I didn't think of the sandwich as having anything to do with that, though. I just found the sandwich to be this like delightfully touching moment where Elaine is saving money on lunch. Like, you know what I mean?
I saw it as like she's feeding pigeons and she's about to go feed herself to some men.
Okay, yeah. Well, we had opposite. I thought that it was put in there for like a funny contrast. That was my impression of it. Like, you expect this glamorous witch to like eat something exotic or whatever, but no.
She's like, I pulled out a dragon fruit and just started noshing.
I don't know, not like a dragon fruit, but like we go to another restaurant or something, right? Or like, I don't know, like, but instead, what my dad would eat for lunch, and she's eating it.
Okay. She's like, and then she pulled out some chips and a banana, and she's like, yay.
Yeah, she didn't get around to that course because she spots like this guy Wayne across this like little city's town square thing. And she, at first you see her like implant Jerry's face onto her ex-husband's face. And so it's like, it's sort of implied that he reminds her of Jerry, I guess. Yeah. I think he's a lot cuter than Jerry.
I think none of the men in this movie are cute.
Okay, I'm attracted to two of them. So
I find them all repulsive.
I find Wayne attractive, like, well, like, not like his personality, but I find his look attractive. And I find Griff attractive.
Yeah.
Like, their looks.
Yeah, none of them are hot. Not even.
Whatever. Objectively speaking, Griff is hot. I'm sorry. I heard the actor who plays him even like was like he's used on romance book covers. He's objectively hot.
All right. I didn't find, because like one of the things I noticed, I'm like, wow, I don't find really any of these dudes particularly hot.
Dude.
But also they seem really like stupid, and I don't like. You have to be smart to be hot to me.
Well, okay, yeah, their personalities in the movie are ridiculous. I'll give you that. But like, just if you look at them from a physical standpoint, like, and I think actually Wayne would be my top from a physical standpoint. He would be my type. The kind of like sort of mid-length hair and like the beard and kind of like a little bit naughty looking eyes and everything. Yeah, that would do it for me.
Dude, I like this. When I saw Wayne, I'm like, dude, that dude is like a rapist. That's what.
Oh my God.
Here. I'm like, he doesn't know it, but he's about to get dextered by her, so it's all fine.
Rapists do not look any specific way, Cybil Solid. Oh my goodness. Okay.
They have a vibe.
All right. Well, he looks smarmy. I'll give you that.
He looks super
kind
smarmy.
Of like, he looks like he looks somewhat, his eyes.
That's exactly correct. He looks smarmy.
Yeah.
I will agree with you. He looks smarmy.
The look in his eyes is very much like my ex, Tim. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. And Tim, I was very attracted to him also because of the smarminess, I will say. Like, that was played into it. Like, he just looked like somebody who was down to do some naughty things, and like, I was about it. So, yeah. Anyway, so Elaine spots Wayne, and then like Wayne is like talking with this like very nice looking, wholesome blonde girl, like student-y looking girl. But as soon as he sees Elaine, he's immediately drawn away. I don't even know if he sees her first. I think she just like pulls him over with energy.
No, I think he notices her, but like, I think he like notices her in the way that like she's a chick. So he notices, and then he's like, oh, but look at her. She is giving me the vibe.
And she gives him like the eye magic too.
That's right. She gives him that. She's like, look at me. And he's like, I cannot help it.
Yeah. And he doesn't even really say goodbye to the blonde lady. He just
walks away.
Yeah, he just like, walks away towards Elaine. And in the course of a very brief conversation, Elaine gets Wayne to take her to his country house, like about an hour out of town. So the next thing we know, we're at the country house. And Wayne is already like pretty into her, at least sexually. He's trying to have sex with her in the car. But Elaine makes him drink from her flask.
Which, FYI, I straight up, people, I want to know, do you drink from some strange person's flask? Especially when you then ask the question, what is this? That's all I'm saying.
If you're like a dude and you're with a woman, you probably feel some sort of amount of confidence that nothing bad's going to happen to you, usually.
You probably do. And this as a woman, I'd be like, one, I wouldn't be in car with a strange man. Two, I would definitely not drink from his flask. 100%.
Yeah. Different life experiences. Yes. Anyway, he drinks from the flask, and then Elaine insists on cooking him dinner instead of going right into sex again. And she cooks him like this very traditional looking like steak and vegetables dinner. And because there's very few clips from this movie, I'm going to play you a little bit of a clip from their conversation. I don't think it's like the best dialogue in the movie, but at least it gives you another example of a conversation from this movie. And you get to hear a little bit of Wayne. So here we are.
This is really nice, isn't it? I like to come up here a lot at the end of the semester to unwind.
Are you a teacher?
Yeah. I teach at the university.
Oh. What do you teach?
English and French literature, with a focus on the 18th century.
So you must be quite a libertine.
A libertine? Why would you say that?
Oh, you know. All of the dangerous liaisons and Fanny Hill stuff. Not to mention Casanova.
Well, there were a lot of books written in the 18th century.
Well, is it true? Are you a libertine?
Yes, I am. I love women. Does that bother you?
On the contrary.
Oh. I feel strange. Dizzy. What was in that drink you gave me?
Organic berries, vodka, hallucinogenic herbs.
Yep, that's what.
Yeah,
that's
exactly. You're like, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't have drunk that flask. I don't know. I'm about to see rainbows.
Except he's all into it. He's like, well, you're wild or something. He's excited about the hallucinogenic herbs. I'm still
pretty
there.
sure he's like, hallucinogenic herbs are fucking me up pretty hard and I just want to have sex. And obviously a chick who gives me hallucinogenic herbs is not thinking about anything but having sex with me.
Yeah, I think that's what he assumes. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. And like, yeah, Wayne starts feeling weird after this. So we see rainbows in his vision. And then coincidentally, Elaine strips down and it's revealed that her black trench coat has like this rainbow lining, which I don't still really understand the significance of that.
I thought it was like a reference to like Technicolor, like a Technicolor, robe or something from the Bible, maybe. I literally was like, I don't understand, but okay, this is her thing.
Yeah, like Wayne says something about her having two sides to her personality, like dark and quiet, like and hiding from the world, and then like the rainbow, and he's like, who do you give the rainbow to? And then she's like, I give the rainbow to you, right now. Yeah, no,
and she's crazy.
I still don't understand what it means, but I found it sweet though. I know she is crazy, Cybil, but like. There is a part of me though that sympathizes with her. Like I feel like Elaine is such a weird character because like there is like a genuine desire in her to love and be loved, and at the same time there's this darkness. Like I feel like her love is two things at the same time.
I definitely think her love is an abusive love. That's for sure. I mean, that's what. But like,
okay, but I want to elaborate on this though. I feel like her love is two things at the same time. So a lot of times we think of love as being like it's either pure and unconditional and good, or it's dark and egotistical and narcissistic and bad. Like it can be one or the other. But I think the same person can potentially have both in them at the same time. You know what I mean? Even towards the same person.
Yeah.
Like I think that you can have a pure love for someone, but also be caught in your ego and then it turns dark. Or it's dark and it becomes less dark and it becomes more pure over time. And obviously she's leaning towards dark, but I wonder if the rainbow actually represents the good part of her that is there, that exists, the hopeful part, the part that maybe just like it was still the little kid before she got all messed up. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I agree with you. I think that like we can have, different, we can have different levels of like kinds of love. You can love somebody and then still wish them dead. You can, hate somebody and still like want them in your life. There's you can hurt the people you love intensely, So I understand like maybe that's what that's about, the idea that, she has this that dual personality and he's saying it, but what he's really saying is like, I don't understand you because I'm a dude.
Anyway, like I just, I don't know. I find it so interesting. Anyway, I find it, I find points of identification with Elaine because I understand her pain, even if I don't want to act the way she acts.
Yeah. I do understand that. And I do like that the next part is Elaine throws stockings at him and then he goes crazy because this part made me hysterical. I was just like, what is even happening right now? Could you imagine the direction on this part where you're like, now smell the stockings and just get crazy about the pheromones?
Yeah. She's like stripping down and throwing her clothes at him. He's like rubbing them all over his face. And like this recurs in another scene in the movie too with another guy. Like I can imagine a guy acting like this, to be honest. Like some guys, like there are guys who fetishize.
Remember, he is high.
Yeah, so. And there are guys who like specifically fetishize stockings and things like this too. Like I have not personally been with them, but I have heard stories of them. It is hilarious though. I think it's played for comedy, honestly. Don't you think?
I definitely laughed if it was played for comedy. I like just started busting up. I was like, for real, this is happening right now. Somebody shot this and directed that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this part is played for comedy to kind of play up how kind of ridiculous Wayne is here.
Gotcha.
And yeah. And then like this works on Wayne though. She's like stripped herself down. She's looking hot. He likes the stockings. He carries her off to bed. And there's this like kind of love scene, like sex scene. Interestingly, she pointed out in the commentary that parts of it are shot through a bunch of whiskey glasses. So you get this kind of interesting nudity shot through glass effect. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of golds in this scene. She said that Anna Biller said that gold represents masculinity to her. I don't, it doesn't really to me, but it kind of gave it an interesting retro look. The only part of the love scene I didn't really like is he has like a completely hairless butt. And I'm sure there's like, there's a lot of guys with hairless butts, but at this point it's weird to me. I don't know. Like men have hair. Sorry, hairless butt men.
No, there you go. He's like, I'm so sorry I got that all waxed off for you. This is sad.
Yeah, don't wax your backs and your butts, men. Please don't. Like, you don't have to. You're animals. It's good.
I like a hairless dude. Keep doing it. I appreciate you.
Oh, okay. So you like the hairless. Okay.
Oh, God, I hate hair. It's different. Disgusting.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, so this is you've gained some insight into the host of Every Rom Com and our preferences.
That's correct. Yeah.
Please keep your hair, men. Yes, please keep it.
You have different people, different strokes for different folks.
So we have this love scene, and like there's also an interesting shot where like Elaine is kind of seen through this kaleidoscope lens where there's like 6 or 7 of her and the rainbow still, and from Wayne's POV. That was kind of interesting. So I kind of like some of the filming choices on the sex scene.
Yeah, I will say that I thought the filming of this was kind of interesting. I did like that section where she wasn't all in the different pieces. I also thought that represented like all of the duality of her personality.
That's interesting. Yeah. She doesn't really seem to be into the sex either. She doesn't seem to be.
No, she only uses the sex. Once again, I don't think she actually likes sex. She's only using the sex as a way to entrap men.
Yeah, too bad. So after sex, Wayne is not feeling good. And Elaine initially shows up and comforts him and like kind of like, poor baby and all this stuff. But then there's this dialogue that Wayne has with Elaine about women. And Biller said that she took this directly from a conversation she had with a male friend. And I so believe it because I've definitely heard men talk like this before.
100%.
Okay, so I'm going to be Wayne doing this dialogue. I never thought I wanted to be tied down to anybody. But it's just because no one was ever quite right. All the women that I'm attracted to physically, they're never bright enough. And all the bright ones are homely and don't arouse me.
That seems like quite a problem.
It is. I've gone my whole life as a loner, thinking I didn't need anybody. But now I'm not so sure. Oh, Elaine! I have never felt real love like this before.
Okay. Also,
he's like crying during
right.
this
I'm
too. I
like,
don't know
Jennifer
if you
can't even
can
do that
tell.
justice. It's like he's sobbing. He's like, I've got my whole life like a loner. Like he is making a meal of that. Like this is the worst thing he's ever thought. And now he's like super happy that he loves her and she's both pretty and amazing because he's high.
Well, no, because he's been drugged by her love potion, though.
That's
like,
correct. Well, and he's high on
worked.
probably her magic too. He's high on it all.
And like, I don't know this dialogue. Like, I've heard guys complain like this before.
Oh, 100%, 100%, and it's never them that's the problem.
Yeah. So Wayne tells her that he's scared now and he feels sick. And Elaine kind of seems bored at this point. Like, as soon as she's trapped Wayne, she's kind of like, oh, really?
That's because she's ready to move on to the next one. Also, like, I think that she doesn't want like a weak man. Like, she really wants like a man who like is trying to dominate her.
Yeah. She tells him to go to sleep and leaves the room. And then she hears Wayne crying for her from the other room. And then in her inner monologue, she says, what a pussy. What a baby. I thought I found a real man, but he's just like a little girl.
Super feminist right now.
I know. But she also says in the same inner monologue, no one was ever there for me when I was crying my heart out. No one ever comforted me. No one. And I found that interesting because Anna Biller told the Witch Wave podcast that she thinks that part of Elaine's love spell, might have contained a secret intention to make men suffer instead of just to make men love her. She just was talking about how your spells can contain secret intentions that you didn't really necessarily mean to put into them.
It's true.
So,
it's like because you don't mean that intention. Also, there's a lot to be said for, you know, someone, the whole sequence of, you know, she has sex with a man, she's essentially trapped him, she has sex with a man, and then after she's gotten what she wants, she's finished with him, which is often the male role, right? So, and I found that really interesting, where she's just like, I fucked you and we're finished. God, can you just get out now?
Yeah, that is like often what like men, you know, will be expected to do or have done.
Yeah, they you know, I've got you, I've attained what I sought, and now I'm bored by you.
So yeah, Elaine leaves Wayne in the other room. He's crying. She doesn't care. The next morning she wakes up. She finds out she's had her period. This is interesting. She has a scene where she puts like her extra hair accessory back on. So I didn't even really notice this until like the second or third time I watched the movie, but her hair isn't all hers.
Yeah.
Part of it is like,
is an attachment wig. Where like the first time she took it off, because first of all, when I first started watching this, I'm like, that chick's wig is so good. Not good. Like, that's what I thought. But I think this a lot, so don't feel bad. And then when she takes it off, I'm like, oh, it is supposed to be a hairpiece. Oh, yeah. Okay, well, that's not as bad then. And suddenly, like, I was like cooler with her.
Yeah, okay. So she does this, and then she makes breakfast for Wayne, and she brings the breakfast into Wayne, and he's like desperate for her love and reassurance. Like he's telling her that asking her if she loves him, and she's like, of course I do. And then he's wanting her to stay, but she leaves again. And Elaine does then a tarot reading where she gets the 5 of Cups, the Tower, and again the 3 of Swords, that heart with the 3 swords in it. And just briefly, like 5 of Cups, like I got all these from Biddy Tarot. I recommend if you do tarot readings, like, you know, use your own judgment and look at several sources. But 5 of Cups is like regret, failure, disappointment, pessimism, like wallowing in self-pity, being stuck in the past. The Tower, I think many people who do tarot know, it means like a sudden change or an upheaval, chaos, revelation, awakening. And it's often associated with like really bad things like destruction and death and loss. Like I've been told, maybe even by you in the past, Cybil, I don't know, but many sources have said that death isn't such a bad card to get in a tarot reading.
It's not.
But the Tower is.
Yeah, if you have them together, it's bad. But yeah, the Tower, and the Tower isn't bad, but like it just shows you that chaos is about to ensue. And it's usually of your own making. Like you have brought it upon yourself.
Yeah. Do you have any other notes on the 5 of Cups either? Like,
I mean, the 5 of Cups really, I find that the 5 of Cups matters most about what it's around. So that's the thing about tarot reading when cards, where you're like, by themselves, they have like a meaning, but it's really as a whole.
Do you never do like a 1 card pull?
No, because I don't believe in them. It should always be 3.
Okay. Okay. So then, like, yeah, so then our last tarot card is the one that appears throughout the movie, the Three of Swords. And some of the representations of this can be heartbreak, emotional pain, sorrow, grief, and hurt. And Biller said that it was chosen specifically for the heartbreak meaning. And I mean, other things that we might find out about later in the movie.
Right.
Obviously, like, you've already kind of answered this question by our discussion, but it sounds like you use tarot in your life.
I do quite often. I've had my same tarot deck since I was 16. It was the first tarot deck I ever got. And I probably pull every week or two, and during times of stress or worry or whatever, I'll pull daily.
Wow, cool. Yeah, I think like when I was more active, I was doing at least like once a week, and I kind of want to get back to it because I was getting kind of good at it, to be honest. Like, I did a really good reading for my husband when he was trying to decide whether to take his new job, and like it was really like spot on. Like, not only with like addressing his concern directly, but then like what turned out from it seems to have been spot on as well. So that was cool. Are there like cards that you often end up pulling that are like thematic for you? Like, she has the Three of Swords.
It kind of depends on what I'm dealing with. I ask a lot of business questions. And then, for this last year, I've done a lot of pulling about love because, I was, in case, dear listener, you don't know, my person of 23 years left me. And so like, I did a lot of like, how can I help heal my heart? What should I be learning from this? And I ask for direction a lot of times. That way I can like see things that I do not understand.
So when you're pulling tarot, you're asking sort of more for direction or guidance.
Yes.
You're not really trying to see the future or anything.
No, I don't do that. I mostly I'm trying, and like even when I do for other people, I'm very I like a very clear question. And it's either like, what should I do about this situation? What am I missing that I should be learning or that I should know? Are there hidden secrets that I'm not aware of?
Yeah.
Stuff like that, not just like, what is my future?
Yeah. I will cop to sometimes trying to learn about my future, but I am trying to be more advice-based lately or guidance-based. Yeah.
Well, the question I have is for you is, do you find that if you ask about your future that you're told?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't like looked back at my tarot journals for a while to like figure out like, has it been accurate in any way? You know what I mean? Like, I think in some ways future readings could end up being sort of wishful thinking or me twisting things to the way I want them to be. Yeah. But when I've read for other people, like, I think it's been more successful. So I don't know. Maybe like there needs to be an element of objectivity to it. I don't know.
Well, that is always true. Like, a reading from someone else is always going to give you a better result than reading for yourself. Because once again, just like a spell, you might have hidden intention. And remember, it is your subconscious that is pulling the cards. I don't believe it's mystical. I believe that it's literally your subconscious trying to tell you things.
And so, like, how would you explain, like, when I randomly pulled the Three of Swords from the tarot deck? Like,
you knew where the Three of Swords was.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's technically possible. It's as possible as there being some kind of weird mystical connection to the Love Witch, certainly.
Well, so I mean, how do you read cards? Like, how do you do it? Do you like look at your deck first and then shuffle?
I don't look at my deck first. I shuffle blind.
Okay, so you shuffle blind. Well, one of the things I would recommend is that you look at your deck, because once again, then your subconscious can tell you more things. It tells you, but you do at some point probably know where all your cards are.
But I kind of believe in magic around it. Like, I know it's not logical. I know
magic isn't logical.
Or I believe in like some kind of like spiritual essence guiding me. Like, sometimes I won't ask for like spirits or like, gods or anything, but I'll ask for like, my ancestors, or my higher self, or like some kind of mystical element. Like, I don't do anything that could like lead me to bad places, is what I'm saying. I specifically ask only particular, ancestors or my higher self to help me pull. I don't feel confident to mess with like deities at this point.
I also do not mess with deities, and I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah. So you're just like asking yourself, your subconscious, basically. You're not asking even ancestors or anything.
I don't ask my ancestors. I definitely have a coterie of angels, or whatever you want to call them, guides or whatever, around me.
Yeah.
And I know that they're always watching out for me, and I definitely listen to them. I've felt them before. I've literally heard them say things to me before, and I'm like, okay, pay attention to that. Okay. Cool. But I'm not a person who's like, I believe that they're guiding my hands or anything as I'm dealing out tarot.
I just wait for myself to have a little feeling about the card. Yeah. Like a little ping. And then I
Mm-hmm.
use that. So, and sometimes I really feel that strongly and other times less so. So, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, this is our magical tarot section of the episode. Okay, so wait, after doing her tarot read and Elaine goes into Wayne's room and she discovers Wayne is dead. And like she really doesn't even take a moment. She just gets about her business. She
I mean,
goes about
don't
her
you
business.
feel that she like knew he was going to die? She's like, yeah, no, I dosed him so he was going to die.
I don't think that she knew consciously that he was going to die. I think there might have been a subconscious knowledge, but I don't think that she had a conscious intent for him to die. I think Elaine keeps a lot hidden from herself. I think she didn't care whether he died.
She super didn't care, 100%.
Yeah, but I don't think she consciously intended for him to die or knew that he was going to die.
Okay,
but,
so what do you think killed him?
What do I think killed him? Like, it's really interesting because the movie kind of leaves it up to you a little bit.
It
like,
does.
is it the actual contents of the potion that killed him, or is it indeed that he did have such like strong feelings, from the potion and the magic? Like, which is it? I don't know.
I mean, I think that her spells drain men of life.
Fair, and that's like a subconscious intention she puts into the spell.
I think that she intentionally does it.
I think most of the actions that Elaine takes in this movie that are harmful are subconscious. They're not visible to her conscious mind. And I think a lot of her life is that she has to hide from her own actions. It's kind of like, in Psycho, when he's kind of a split personality in a way, Okay, so yeah, so she discovers he's dead, and then she goes about making this witch bottle to place on Wayne's grave. She's like urinating into this bottle. She's collecting herbs for it. And then she takes out her tampon, which obviously she's on her period. And I love that there's a tampon in this movie. And Anna Biller included this bit of inner monologue she does, specifically because she wanted to make it clear that she didn't put the tampon in there for a horrific effect. So she has Elaine say, "Tampons aren't gross. Women bleed, and that's a beautiful thing. Do you know that most men have never even seen a used tampon?" So she put that dialogue in there deliberately to say that tampons aren't bad, and that's not why the director put them in there. And I liked it because, like, you never see used tampons in a movie, really.
And I literally thought to myself, have any of the people I've ever been with seen my used tampon? And I'm going to say the answer is no.
Really?
No.
I think the majority of the men I've been with have seen my used tampon, actually.
Yeah, I'm going to say no. I mean, I don't use tampons anymore anyways. But
yeah,
I remember Nils one time, I used a cup and I had spilled some and I had not caught it that I had spilled some. And he's literally like, I had to wipe your blood off the toilet. And I was like, okay, I have to wipe your shit off the toilet all the time. What's the difference?
Yeah, right? Jesus.
Like, whatever, dude. I cleaned up your pee, like, whatever.
Yeah, seriously. No, like...
You look like horrified about it.
Yeah, I've definitely been with dudes who are okay with the blood. And, like, I would say everyone I've slept with on a regular basis has seen my tampon at one point or the other. So there are guys who can hang. There are guys who can deal. Maybe that's even like a test for me. Like, can you hang with my bloody tampon?
Can you hang with my tampon?
Because it is real. It exists. I don't know. Like, anyway. So, like, was this scene, like, did that at all shock you? Like, what, seeing the tampon?
I wasn't shocked. No, I wasn't shocked. But I definitely was like, well, I mean, this is something different. And, like, I was more intrigued by this scene than others. I also was like, okay, well, she's putting together this bottle, and this like bottle seems pretty legit.
Yeah, I think she studied. Anna Biller is one of the things I think she studied, actually. Okay, and then she like takes this witch bottle and her coat with the rainbow, and like I think some other things. I can't remember what all she puts there. She puts them on Wayne's grave and she buries Wayne. She's like carrying him in a wheelbarrow and all this shit. And she's like just so cheerful when she's burying him. She's just like, her inner monologue is so indifferent. She's just like, I don't really mind death. I've buried people before. People I really cared about. Which again gives you a suggestion that this is not her first rodeo. And she just seems more, she brings up the death of her cat, Grey Malkin, and how much she misses him. And she like really cares more about this cat than this dude. Which
I love that part. I was like, so she really is mourning her cat. And she's like, this dude, whatever. Also, she's digging a hole, which, I mean, does she know how deep those holes need to be? She's supposedly done this before.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember if they show how deep the hole
You
actually
know how
ends up
hard it is
being.
to dig in California soil? It's so hard.
Okay, I don't know.
Okay, so like I was just like, okay, so she's like, whatever, because I thought she was just gonna set him on fire, and then I was like, okay, well, he's gonna be a weird desiccated dude, and then she's like, no, I'm gonna bury him. I'm like, all right,
Yeah, but she sets other stuff on fire on top of the grave,
that
like
is
the
true.
bottle and her coat and everything. Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's like a whole thing. So yeah.
Right. I have a
So
question.
yeah, Wayne is.
Do you know why she set her coat on fire? Because I do not.
I didn't look into that. Like,
Okay, I was curious.
but I know that burning things is like often done in like different witchcraft
No,
rituals and
I mean,
practices.
absolutely. But usually it's all, everything is a symbol and it means something. And I was like,
Yeah,
what does the coat mean to you that's attached to this dude? Or are you just like
yeah,
leaving that person behind? Like, I'm like, is that because you stripped it off and you're leaving that person behind you?
maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I was interested in that part the most.
Yeah, also it's a really nice coat and she's getting
It
rid
is
of
a
it.
really nice coat. I agree.
We're going to pause here from like the plot of the film and just talk a little bit about love magic in general. So, love magic is a kind of an interesting subject in modern witchcraft. Like when you read up about it, a lot of modern practitioners don't recommend using love magic to attract a particular person or even to attract people at all. And like some of the reasons given for this are ethical reasons, but other people say that it doesn't even work to attract a particular person. So, you may as well not bother. Love magic though does have this like very long history, like in many different cultures. Apparently the oldest evidence of love magic was discovered on a tablet dating from 2200 BCE in what is present day Iraq, and it's been found in a lot of cultures, Greek culture, Renaissance culture, like throughout our history. And then love magic can be performed a variety of ways. You can use spells, amulets, baths, candles, dolls, potions, or rituals. A modern love magic practice that I found in Teen Vogue, because like the teens are really into witchcraft these days, suggested making a honey jar where you write the name of your crush on a piece of paper and place their name into a jar of honey. Within a week or two, they may be sweet on you as a result. So love magic can be something like as innocent as that, or as elaborate as these potions that Elaine is making, or these dolls that she is selling. So, like, what is your opinion, Sybil, on love magic, and like, have you encountered people using it?
Yeah, hell no on the love magic. The first tenet of most, practitioners is do no harm. And the idea that you would try to manipulate somebody into feelings for you is absolutely harm. Now, if you want to do love magic to like find your soulmate or something like that, to put yourself out there, to make yourself, there's one that you can do where you make yourself a beacon of love for the person who is seeking you.
Okay,
Okay.
that's interesting.
Right, so like it's all about like how you phrase it and how you're applying it to the universe around you. But like the idea that you'd like target a specific person, heck no way.
So, like, would you find this like Teen Vogue's honey jar to be in that ethical zone of like, no?
I mean, if you did it with the intent of actually gaining that person's love, then yes.
So so you'd find that great. So like, so
Well,
do you think love magic can work on somebody who isn't already interested in you? Because that was like another question that I found in some of these articles, like where
if
people
you're
would say, like, you can't possibly even attract someone if there isn't already something there.
I mean, I believe that your personal power is strong enough that you can accomplish anything because you shape the reality around you.
Okay.
So then yes, but then in that case, that person probably person probably did have some kind of thoughts about you. I don't think that you could probably find a stranger on the street that you've never met and be like that guy. And then eyeball him
Yeah.
and your eyes bring him to, love you for life.
Such as Elaine is doing with her.
Correct. I mean, I
Yeah.
personally don't believe that that's probably a thing, but I mean, women ensorcel in lots of ways, men ensorcel in lots of ways, so, it, I don't think that like what we consider like love magic, it can be very broad. And so like if it's just in the love magic category, where you're actually trying to get one specific person who may not be interested in you, but let's say that your love is waning, you're like, you could do a spell to be like, let's have more understanding or something like that. It's all the intent.
Okay, so for you, it's like the ethics of love magic has to do with intent, and you don't want it to be manipulating somebody. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
And that is pretty much the tenet for any kind of magic doing, in my opinion.
So let's see. So Elaine goes home. She's buried Wayne, blah, blah, blah. And she begins painting this picture we're going to see throughout the film, where a woman with a sword is crouching over a man who is lying down with a bleeding wound in his chest. And the woman is holding a bleeding heart in her hand, obviously the man's heart. And it's like kind of a pretty picture that like almost looks innocent in a way, despite being gruesome.
I mean, it's cartoony. It's cartoony, right? So it's like cartoony.
Yeah, but she's just happily painting this painting, looking all pretty. And then Trish comes over, and Elaine serves her tea and tries to serve her cake, but Trish doesn't want it. I mean, come on. It's a beautiful cake. I don't understand her problem.
Because she's afraid of being fat.
Yeah, sad.
But that's what this is about. So the undertones of this conversation are like Trish is afraid that she's, that she's fat and she's going to lose her man.
Yeah. And then we learn that Trish is going out of town, and Elaine puts in, "Is Richard going with you?"
I know, which is like the one, like as soon as somebody said that to me, I'd be like, girlfriend, back off.
Right?
Because nobody's going to ask if my other person's going with me.
Trish does not have her guard up whatsoever.
She does not. She does not know that she needs to be afraid of this lady who's apparently just hungry for men.
So then Elaine goes out and meets with her coven, and they're at a burlesque club. And in this scene, there's this very kind of intriguing kind of burlesque dancer who has some gray hair. And this is actually a real life burlesque dancer called April Showers. And I'll put a link to her Instagram in the show notes. So I thought that was kind of cool that we got to see this kind of like, I guess you would say non-traditional burlesque dancer, but a lot of burlesque dancers these days don't have like, like kind of a quote unquote perfect, model look, right? She's got a little something different about her. And I like that.
I know. I also think that of the people in this movie, she is the one that if I was to watch a spinoff, I'd love to see what happens with her, because she's a really intriguing person and character.
Just the burlesque dancer?
Just the burlesque dancer, yeah.
Yeah, even though we don't hear her speak. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I just felt that she had such like a presence, and I just imagine like what is her life like in this what is her life like right now? Like what is she up to and doing?
All right, I like it. So, and then we meet part of Elaine's coven. We see Barbara and Gayan. And Gayan is like this kind of male leader of the coven, and Barbara seems to be the female leader. I get the idea they might be married or something.
I don't know, actually. They definitely had some kind of relationship of some sort. Yeah. But I don't know if they were married.
Well, Gayan and Barbara are talking to Elaine about like the classes they're teaching, including sex magic. And then they say that a pair of new initiates are coming to like take a sex magic class at this burlesque dancing place, which really seems like it exists in some kind of David Lynch universe. Like it really, this whole,
yes, it does. I agree.
Yeah. Everything that takes place in this bar, I just feel like David Lynch directed it instead, including these like initiates who show up who are like these twin blonde girls with like white dresses.
Right.
Like, yeah, I expected that like dwarf guy to show up and start like talking backwards at any minute. I'm glad it wasn't just me.
Yeah, no, I felt it did feel kind of Lynchian. And it was all very surreal, I guess. It's kind of like weirdly surreal, right? Like you're in the red room.
Yeah, like when like you're like, why does this burlesque dance place exist in this place? And why are all the guys like they're all like the way that Wayne was with the stockings? They're all like just ridiculously enraptured by this woman dancing. Like in modern times, when guys expect a little more usually at their strip clubs. I don't know. Anyway, so Gayan and Barbara then alternate giving sort of a quote unquote lesson on sex magic and the power of dance. And like they're giving this big monologues about like sex magic and dancing. And at the same time, your attention as an audience is kept by this burlesque dancer. Because you could not have this amount of like just monologuing without something visual to look at.
Yep.
Yeah. Were you bored in this part, or were you?
This was one of the more interesting parts for me because I was obsessed with the dancer.
Okay.
So
okay.
I was intrigued by this part. I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting.
So like there's this whole big dialogue between Gayan and Barbara. I don't think we actually have time to deliver all of it. So maybe we can do the beginning of the lesson. What do you think? Do you want to be Gayan or Barbara?
I'll be Gayan.
Okay, so you're going to be Gayan. So Gayan is the kind of, I would describe him also as smarmy.
He is
leader male.
he is super smarmy. She has a type, and see, this is when, like, once again, like, when you meet him, you suddenly understand why, part of why Elaine is the way she is, because Gahan has shaped her. He has, like, manipulated her mind and shaped her in this way.
Okay, so you're going to give part of his lesson on sex magic, and then I'll proceed to be Barbara. I'll take over.
Okay. All witches need to figure out where their power lies. We feel that a woman's power lies in her sexuality. We don't view their power as satanic or anti-feminist, but as a celebration of woman as a natural creature, an earthly body, a spiritual essence, and a womb.
The whole history of witchcraft is interwoven with the fear of female sexuality. They burned us at the stake because they feared the erotic feelings we elicited in them. Later, they used marriage to hold us in bondage. They made us into servants, whores, and fantasy dolls, never asking us what we wanted.
They teach us that a normative human being is a hyper-rationalist stoic male, and that women's emotions and intuitions are illnesses that need to be cured. We believe that men and women are different and that the true equality lies in that difference.
We strive for a male-female polarity and to regain our primal power as goddesses. We need to teach men how to love us, using ways they can understand.
I think that's a good place to stop right there. That's a
yeah. There's so much. Although in the next section, Gahan talks about how women should wear perfume and high heels and like dress a certain way to draw men in, and like Barbara continues that like if you use this sex magic, you'll get men to see you as a human, and then they will love you, and you can do with them what you will. So it's like this whole philosophy that Elaine has been apparently taught previously, and she has bought into. So what do you make of this like dialogue here? Like,
I mean, I mostly feel that our lovely writer director is trying to explain to us like what, like, hi, here's a bunch of stuff that I've learned about like sex magic and ritual, and I feel it's like a lot of information dump on this.
But like it feels very purposeful too, though. Like to me, it feels like such a combination of like stuff that sounds, good and true. Like, yeah, like I think men have feared women for their sexuality. I think that like the idea of like the normative human being is a hyper rationalist stoic male, and that women's emotions and intuitions are illnesses that need to be cured. That's all like very feminist to me and very inspiring and intriguing.
There is an agenda right here. I actually find that is my favorite line right there. The one that about that. And I was like, whoa, okay, well now we know what like the agenda is.
But then it's like combined, like that feminist stuff then is combined with this idea that like we should doll ourselves up a certain way so that men can understand, like, so men can view us as human, and that it's on us to be like all sexual and like lure men in. Like that to me is both like not particularly feminist, and also I don't really view men and women as being like that different from each other. I don't view men as necessarily being that way. I think there's definitely
the two sides of it, right? So you're supposed to, it's like, once again, it's the polarity, it's the black coat and rainbow coat inside, like, so the idea that you are both things at once, and this is what this coven believes in.
So this coven has both progressive and regressive beliefs, is what you're saying?
Their idea of progressiveness is rooted in these old ideas. They're like, oh, but these are normal ideas, and they're all this, and they're all good, they're all fine.
So do you find yourself agreeing with certain things and disagreeing with others like I do?
I mean, I don't think I really thought of it that much. I really found that like this conversation was like, I felt that once again, as you said, there's an agenda here. Like the agenda is, here is what the deeper meaning of what's happening in this movie is.
Yeah.
And I don't think I really thought about whether I believed in it or not.
I definitely did. Like I was the whole time. Like, this is how I am a lot of times with like, especially like arguments that people put out or teachings. I'm like, agree with that, don't agree with that, maybe. Like I'm always kind of like going through things and like sorting them in my mind. Like a lot of things I'm maybe, because I have an open mind, but like,
right.
Yeah, I found it such an interesting mixture of like feminism and regressiveness. And Gahan is such an interesting character because he says very feminist things, but then like we're given to understand through Elaine's flashbacks and her relationship to Gahan that he has abused her sexually in some way, whether consciously or unconsciously, like through this power he's held over her as like the priest of the coven, right? And she had to participate in what's called the Great Rite initiation with him, where he has had sex with her and she didn't necessarily want that sex. Maybe
Okay.
maybe she didn't verbalize that she didn't want it, but
Right.
she clearly didn't want it. Did you get that? Because
I
like
did.
it
I
took.
did get that. I did get
Okay,
that.
yeah,
And that's why like I felt like there's a part that's why I think there's a part of this where, it's very culty. So like
yeah.
it's very culty and less like what you consider maybe a coven, but it's very culty, and that she has been like traumatized by this, and it's what like shaped who she is.
Yeah, but apparently this great rite initiation, like I wasn't able to find too much information on it. It is mentioned in the commentary too, like Biller was purposefully putting that in there. It is something that apparently has existed in Wicca and has been practiced at times. A lot of times now it's just practiced symbolically, where you'll have a knife plunging into a goblet, and that represents the great rite, the sexual act. But like I've also was starting to see things like online, which I didn't have time to go fully into. I've been on vacation, but I found things about Wiccan covens where there was some kind of accusation of abuse of like an older male figure in the coven trying to maybe using his power and authority to make sexual things happen that weren't
Well,
appreciated.
once again, that's any religion, right? You can say that about
Yeah.
any religion, especially with men in those religions. But there's a reason
Yeah.
why I'm not part of a coven.
Yeah. Is that part of it? Like the
Part
power
yeah, it's
dynamics?
just like I don't want anybody's like energy and juju around me
Yeah.
because I can't trust them and their
Gotcha.
juju. I mean, I'm sure, hey, if you're in a coven out there and you love it, hey, drop me an email. It's probably amazing. But yeah, I find that like many things, people abuse group things, and
Yeah.
some covens are like 4 people, 3 people, 5 people, and then hopefully everybody, you trust them. This is a giant effing coven.
Yeah, it is. We see a little ritual later on with
Yeah,
the.
like you're like, this is like a huge coven.
Okay, so after this scene at the burlesque club from David Lynch, we get to a scene where Elaine is at her altar. By the way, the altar in this movie, Biller built using exact instructions from a book by Aleister Crowley on how to make an altar. The attention to detail is just amazing in this movie. Sybil's like, whatever, I don't
Yeah,
care.
I'm like, I got nothing to say. I mean, I will say that once again, like, what was I find intriguing, and if you're gonna watch this movie, like, enjoy the pieces, the aspects of it that are the way that it's put together. Obviously, this is like a passion project, and you can enjoy like the cinematography is intriguing, and the sets are like sumptuous and interesting. There's a lot of stuff that's going on for this film that might not be, in my opinion, the plot or the dialogue.
Well, I love that she put together this altar. Like, I love that she actually used specifications. I feel like, in a way, it's like her way of creating magic throughout this movie. Like
Mm-hmm.
that she did the calligraphy on the spell book, that she hooked the rug. Like, I'm just like, wow.
If only she
Anyway,
had done magic, like money magic, while she was doing
oh
all
yeah,
this to pull in like
for
better
real.
box.
And then, so at this altar, she's got the pictures of all these guys that she has slept with, slash, they have ended up dead. And
She does have her altar of male death, right?
she's flashing back then at the altar to bad memories of her husband, Jerry. And her husband, Jerry's kind of verbally abusing her and saying that she's not taking care of herself and not taking care of the house. So this maybe suggests a past Elaine who wasn't glamming herself up and cooking all the time,
True.
which is kind of interesting. She flashes back also to like just her father's voice, saying that she could lose weight and that she's crazy and all this other stuff. And I can't tell if there's another abusive man than her voice she hears, or if there's a suggestion that her father sexually molested her. But there's definitely.
I thought there was a suggestion that her father had sexually molested her. That's what I got.
Okay, yeah, it didn't sound like the same voice to me, but it also sounded like it went along with that same thread. So yeah. Definitely she's been abused by Gan and other men as well, it seems like. And yeah, and we flash back at that point to the Gan and her initiation. So yeah, Elaine has a lot of pain and Elaine has a lot of baggage. But there's a brief scene where we find out that the police are on the case. The same police officer from the first scene who pulled Elaine over is now finding out about the teacher's disappearance, and they're going to find out what happened to him. We're going to skip over that part, but
Okay, I will make a note to that I was like, oh my god, is this like a real, like, if police investigators really worked like that, we would be in so much trouble.
why? What about
Because
it?
like, literally, they're just like, it's like a who's on first conversation to me. They're like, oh my god, look, is that blood in there? What is it? I think it's urine. No, right? Like, and then they're just like touching everything. like
That's
whatever.
true. That's
Right?
true.
I'm like, dudes, like for reals? Okay.
I didn't even notice any of that. That's so funny. Yeah, that's so funny.
I
Because the
apparently
movie's
watch
not.
way too much true crime. I watch way too much true crime for like, like
Yeah.
watch these two, dunderheads essentially come in and be like, la, da, 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 look at me being funny with a dead dude.
Yeah, the context I was watching this from was from like an older movie. Like in older movies, cops and stuff would act like this all the time. So it just,
That's
yeah,
probably true.
it just fit right into me. I was like, yeah, it seems about right.
But it's not. It's 2016. It's supposed to be taking like present-ish, or maybe it's supposed to be out of time. I don't know. Maybe this is.
Yeah, it is a little. It does have a sense of a little bit being out of time.
Yeah.
I don't know. So Wayne is dead now, and Elaine has moved on to Richard. Trish is out of town, and Elaine is feeding Richard and listening to his problems and validating his emotions and saying, "Poor baby, poor baby." Does this work on dudes? I wonder.
No,
I don't know.
it does not work on dudes. That is not something that works on dudes.
They don't want to be called a poor baby.
No,
Yeah,
they do not want to be called a poor baby. I also think that she keeps calling them poor babies is also like making them seem more like supposed to be making them seem more like childlike and less, like masculine. Because one of the things she really wants is this masculine kind of man.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Elaine listens to Richard and then gives him this ridiculously large goblet. I love this goblet.
It's a very phallic goblet, my friend.
Oh, really?
It's just like it's very large and round, and like I literally was like, so this is your manhood. I see.
I thought of it more as like dwarfing Richard and making him seem again like a child, like you're talking about. So that's interesting. I took it the opposite way. But yeah, this like ridiculously comic large goblet, and he just drinks out of it because whatever. And then after this, Richard he drinks from it, and Richard confesses to Elaine, "I feel like my life is slipping away, and there's so many things I haven't done. I've never had any sort of love affairs or gotten into any mischief." And then he confides to her that he imagines himself like being in like a Steve McQueen film where he's like a gangster, or being in a Western and going to visit prostitutes. And Elaine is like saying, "Oh yes, I understand. That seems like a reasonable thing to want."
But she's also like, I'll give you what you want because like I'm your fantasy and like I want to own you.
Yeah, and like what's interesting to me about it is like his like male fantasies, like these Steve McQueen things, these Western things, it's like the flip side of Elaine's princess fantasy. But I think we often take men's fantasies more seriously in our culture. Like movies that depict men's fantasies often are considered more serious than movies that depict women's fantasies.
Mm-hmm.
Like I knew a guy, and like he was all about like noir movies and like these hard-boiled characters, right? And I could tell that like he wanted to be like kind of like loner archetype, right? That like guy detective who doesn't need anybody, right? And like it just that reminds me of like it's not the same fantasy, but it reminds me of Richard. The guys have these particular archetypes they want to embody, just like women have these like princess or mermaid fantasies or love fantasies.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. I did not see that or think about that when I was first watching, but now that you say that, I'm like 100%.
Yeah. Like it seems it comes from the same level too. It comes from our childhood. It comes from our adolescence. But for men, that adolescent fantasy is allowed to
continue,
still be taken seriously.
Yeah, it's allowed to continue because they're cis white males. We'll get super feminist now. Okay.
But Elaine is like indulging Richard's little fantasy here. She strips for Richard again with the caressing the stockings madly, and they begin to make out. And then we got to do this dialogue. Which one do you want, Richard or Elaine?
I'm assuming we're gonna be Richard.
Okay, so you're gonna be Richard.
Okay, because I remember the scenes, and I laughed so hard at this. Okay, who are you? What are you doing to me?
I'm the love witch. I'm your ultimate fantasy.
That's what I'm saying. Just like that. This is the most realistic dialogue we've ever done together.
I fucking love it, though. I love it. Like, it's so over the top. It's so amazing.
It's so over the top. I'm just like, oh my God. Okay.
Well, is it any stranger than a lot of things people say in bed? I don't know.
I mean... I don't know. I mean, he's not even high this time, so I have no excuses for him.
He did drink from the goblet. He drank something.
But he doesn't seem like it. Like, does he seem as high though? Like, he's not like, I'm fucked up.
Well, he is like caressing those stockings. So unless you
Maybe
consider
that's what
that
it
to
is.
be,
It's like you drink that love potion and you're like, oh, I love stockings.
yeah, yeah. Now we get to like one of the best tropes in any movie. I love the scene.
Yes.
We had one of these in Somewhere in Time too. We have the
Yep.
scene where the people go to visit like the professor, and in this case, it's the cops go to visit Professor King, occult studies. He has like one of those little like name plates with that
Yep.
written on it.
If you do not have a professor scene in a movie about something like witches or like demons or something like that, I don't know what you're doing. You clearly
Yeah.
didn't get the memo.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it so much. And yeah, Professor King basically just explains witch bottles. He said they are used for protection against curses, which that checked out, or to scare away spirits, and that usually witch bottles were hidden carefully, like or buried. In this movie, not hidden so carefully as the
No.
cops quickly discovered it. Yeah.
Yeah, just like hanging out there.
Yeah, have you heard of witch bottles before? Like,
Yeah, I'd heard of witch bottles. I mean, mostly more people make witch bags that I know than bottles, but
yeah.
spell bags. But I mean, witch bottles are people do all the time. You'll actually see them sometimes hanging on people's necks.
Huh.
But yeah, often they're hidden because as soon as they're found and discovered, like the nature of that spell, it changes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think the witch bottles of today may be slightly different than the ones that were found in old houses and stuff. Yeah. But
Mhm.
yeah. So anyway, then the professor randomly shows the cops like old engravings of witches meeting the devil and stuff, which doesn't seem terribly relevant to this movie,
Nope.
but which I love anyway.
But like honestly, if you were going to a professor of occult studies, that's what he'd show you.
Yeah. So, and we have then also a brief scene where we see a coven ritual with Elaine's coven, and Gan is giving Barbara something called the fivefold kiss, which we've seen flashbacks where he's giving this to Elaine. And it's a kiss where you kiss the feet, the knees, the womb, the chest, and the lips. So quite intimate. And for the whole ritual, they're wearing like pretty elaborate costumes, and the setup is pretty nice. Biller told the Witchwave podcast that she based her ritual's imagery on pictures and videos of Alex and Maxine Sanders' rituals from the 1960s. So I don't know if that's anything you've ever looked at before. But
I don't even know who those people are.
Okay, they're kind of like, I don't remember exactly what school they're in, but they're kind of like a different school of Wicca. Like
Okay.
not Gerald Gardner, but a different offshoot, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, those are what she used for her visual inspiration, because apparently rituals today aren't generally quite as elaborate. Maybe not as much nudity either, and not as many like antler helmets and so forth. I don't know.
I mean, I think that there probably are. I mean, I know the covens go sky clad, and they're therefore they're naked. I imagine that they still will, like, because the headdresses and stuff is all about just like creating this space and that feel.
This is just what Biller said, though, that the covens she was encountering weren't quite as visually arresting. And so, like, after the ritual, we learn some information. Elaine tells Barbara she has broken up with Richard because he became obsessive and morose and like a woman. And then my favorite line in the movie.
Yes.
But I should have known. He's a Pisces.
Right.
I'm a Pisces too, but it was still fucking funny.
She also could have been like, he's a Gemini. So could have been that as well.
No, Pisces is perfect. I love my astrological sign, but the male Pisces I've met, they do seem to have a morose tendency, I will say.
And
I don't know.
And you do not have a morose tendency.
Yes, I have but I think maybe we accept morose tendencies more from women. I don't know. Maybe it's not fair.
No, it's not fair. Equal for both people.
Yeah. Sorry, Pisces men. Sorry. It was still funny though. It was still funny.
No, I like laughed at that. I was like, right on.
So now we cut to Richard having been rejected. He is crying and drinking, and he's doing tarot readings for himself now. I guess he's gotten into Elaine's interests. He pulls a 9 of Swords, which stands for anxiety, worry, fear, depression, nightmares. By the way, I used to pull 9 of Swords all the time in my 20s. All the time. So
9 of Swords also means like danger from the unknown.
Okay, I didn't know that one. Very good.
Danger from the unknown.
He pulls Elaine's card, the 3 of Swords, which, the heartbreak, etc. And then he pulls the Devil, which with Biddy Tarot's reading was shadow self, attachment, addiction, restriction, and sexuality. Certainly I can see the addiction meaning there, but I think the Devil has more complicated meanings too.
It often means that you've put yourself in a situation that is bad.
Yeah.
And you're choosing to be in it, because if you look at any devil, you'll see that there are two people on the card, and both of them have like shackles or rope or something on them, but it's super loose. They can get out of that at any time, but they've chosen to be there. They've put themselves in this position.
Yeah, Richard, like, even though he had the potion, he has made several choices that were not great. I mean, the choice to hang out with Elaine in the first place, really. So
the choice to cheat on his wife probably was the first one, and you know, drinking strange beverages. Once again, people do not drink strange beverages from women
or men.
Or men. Yeah, don't drink strange beverages from people. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
Somebody hands you a goblet, maybe you say, not so much.
I want to get that goblet, though. Seriously, I want to get a goblet like that and just put like normal drinks in it and see who will drink from it.
Be like, yes, there's another one. Be like, what's in there? My urine. Okay.
No, I'm gonna put like grape juice in it and I'll just see who drinks it. That's all.
All right.
Okay, just as a social experiment. Okay, I'm done. Okay, anyway, so we see Trish approaches Richard, who's in this state, and she is both concerned but also just angry. She's had it with Richard's behavior. We later learned that she's figured out that Richard has had an affair, and Richard is just sitting there continuing to fantasize about Elaine, seeing her naked in his mind. There's this really arresting image of Elaine emerging naked from behind this like fire, which I really loved.
Yeah.
Which seemed like a tarot card in itself, or like maybe one of those Loteria cards it looked like.
Yeah. It definitely had, and also I think it's supposed to be evocative of her own like art as well.
Yeah.
So, question I have for you about poor Richard here. One, did you think he was hiding his affair in any way with Elaine? Like, would you not realize something was going on?
No, I would have realized something was going on.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, Trish walks in, she's, what's happening? And he's like, oh, don't look at these papers that I have here. And that I'm obsessing about some chick. I've got tarot everywhere. Also, if I had walked into some dude just has a bunch of tarot and he used to not, I'd be like, what is going on with you, dude?
Yeah. And I might connect it to my friend Elaine, too.
Right, who's witchy. Yeah. So this whole scene, I was just like, poor Trish.
Yeah. See, you did relate to a character. There you go.
I did feel bad for Trish, because I was like, poor Trish. She's just, she picked the wrong man, and now she's stuck with him, and maybe he'll die. Cool.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to have the spoiler section. So if you've not seen The Love Witch and you're intrigued by it rather than put off by it, please go and see The Love Witch and then rejoin us.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's the spoiler section. So Griff, the cop, comes by Elaine's house. He has connected her to to Wayne's burial site via the New Age
via the everything. Okay, via the everything.
But mainly the New Age store. He found out who designed the witch bottles who are at the New Age store and the other products. And he's come to her house to question her. She's wearing like kind of an atypical outfit for this movie, like this psychedelic 2-piece, like, I don't know, lounging wear or something. It's interesting, very colorful, multicolored. She's doing her like creative witch stuff. And at first he's questioning her quite seriously. And like, then she flashes her eyes at him like they're and and as soon as this happens, he tells her to call him Griff, and he's asking her out to like go horseback riding with him the next day. And she's like very taken by him, and she decides that he is the man in the cards. You're my fate. She says that he is the Knight of Wands that she pulled the other day. And and then she also says that I always knew that if I pulled the Knight of Wands, I'd meet the man I was going to marry. She's just like putting it out there right away.
Yeah. Also, she's like, let's go riding, because that's something that everyone does.
I mean, I don't know. A lot of people, like, her fantasies are about literally a man on a horseback, right? So like, it just plays into that.
In reality, he would have been like, dude, I'm a cop. I don't ride horses.
But he's the one who says he likes horses. He's the one who suggests it.
I know, but he shouldn't. Like, he doesn't have the time or money for that. He's a cop.
Well, I don't know. He said his friend had the horses, so I'm okay.
Maybe his friend has horses. Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with the whole horse situation. Yeah. Anyway, they go on this horse riding date. Apparently, this part was shot in Griffith Park. And this is the part that makes no sense. Okay, most of the movie I ride with it. Then they like come upon like this like 15th century, specifically 15th century, Anna Biller pointed out, a 15th century Renaissance fair, which seems to be hosted by Elaine's Coven. But like Griff is the one who asked her on the date. So how did they end up by this Renaissance fair? I don't know. And it's super random and everybody's in like really elaborate costumes, putting on performances just for themselves. There's not like an audience of wider people there. This scene did pull me out of reality a bit, and it was a little odd.
Also, what is it like if you took the scene out of the film, would the scene miss it?
Yeah, I think the film would miss it. I do.
Okay.
I'll make an argument for it, but like, yeah, because what happens in the scene is that Elaine and Griff are pulled into this like mock wedding ceremony, and they take them away and they put them in these like white costumes where they're dressed as like a king and a queen getting married, and they perform this mock wedding and they put the rings on their finger, and this is like Elaine appearing to get like everything she wants, like she believes herself now to be wed to Griff. That's the interesting part to me. Like Elaine is so caught up in her fantasies and so delusional and so able to delude herself that she really, in a sense, believes she is married to Griff now. That's why I think the scene is important. I think it's odd the way they had to bring it about, but I think it works for the story and just like Elaine feeling that her fantasies have finally been fulfilled.
Okay.
No, it didn't work for you?
I mean, I seriously fast forwarded through this scene because I was like, what? And fast forward.
Dude, you weren't even interested by the visual spectacle of it all? Because like these costumes are like fabulous. Like,
no, I was super bored.
Well, Biller made all the costumes and accessories for this.
I know, and that's intriguing.
Like everything. And she used silk for all the costumes so they would flow right and so they could get wet potentially. And it took more than a year to make them. She also wrote the song that is performed in this scene, which is Love is a Magical Thing, which is like, love is a magical thing. I should have clipped it. I don't think it's a really good song, but apparently it was actually early music department actually looked it over too. So like it would have some sort of Renaissance authenticity.
Okay.
Yeah. Cybill's like, I don't care. The whole scene's garbage.
Seriously, I was like, I watched this film three times without watching the scene at all. And the movie did not suffer.
Well, yeah.
But I'm intrigued to see what's going on. I'm trying to think, like, did the costumes, because I love costumes. Was I intrigued by these costumes? No, I was not. I am more intrigued by them now that I know that she made them all herself. I'm like, damn, girl.
And the accessories. So if you look at any of like the hats or like the little props they're holding, she made those too. So it's kind of nuts. Anyway, but the mock wedding for me is like really the heart of the scene. And after the mock wedding, if you fast forward it, you might have missed their inner monologue. Shit, that is super important. I hope you didn't miss the inner monologue.
I'm pretty sure I missed all of this section because
oh my God.
At this point, I was like, please, movie, just end.
Oh, no. This is like super important to the whole movie. Oh my God.
I clearly found that was not true.
This is one of the best parts of the movie and you missed it. I swear to God. So they get mock weddinged. They get mock married. They're in their like white wedding costumes. They're sitting at this feast table and they're feeding each other grapes. And it's like they're kind of kissing each other. And it's like this image of like total happiness. And then there's a contrasting inner monologue. And now I wish I'd included the entire thing because it's all fabulous. But the inner monologue begins as Griff is like appearing to enjoy Elaine so much with him saying, I'm not in love. And he gives this whole thing about how he's not in love because he doesn't believe in love and it makes men soft and it puts them in danger, right? And then there's a section where Elaine continues then. And this is all done in inner monologue while they're feeding each other grapes and hanging out. So, I'll be Griff. I'm going to let you be Elaine. Okay.
Okay. Hold on.
So this is Elaine continuing the inner monologue.
When you really love him, it's like fireworks and nothing else matters. You love all the little quirks about him. The way he slurps his cereal, the way his mouth is a little crooked. Those details about him become your whole life. Something inside you opens up like a flower and you realize that you have more love to give than you've ever thought was possible. 'Cause the more you know him, the more you love him.
The more you get to know a woman, the less you can feel about her. At first, she's this incredible object of mystery who fulfills all your wildest fantasies. Then she starts to reveal little flaws. And after a while, it just gets pretty hard to care. The feminine ideal only exists in a man's mind. No woman could ever fulfill it. And sometimes, when she tries to love you more, give you more, you feel like you're suffocating, drowning in estrogen. The most awful feeling. This part is like to me, this part is like central to the whole movie. This is showing like this impossible, like tragic impasse that these two people are at. Like there was part of me, and even though Elaine's terrible, there was part of me that was hoping she would get together with Griff and just be happy.
Right. Like you wanted the joy at the end. You're like, oh, they'll be together and she finally found her person and maybe she'll be less crazy. Or he'll love her for her crazy and then can contain that crazy.
Yeah, something. Like I thought maybe like she would finally get what she wanted. But like in this terrible, tragic irony, like she finally finds quote unquote a man, right?
Right. Yeah, and he's not a pussy. He is not a pussy.
And he's resistant to her charm. He doesn't want to be with her. He doesn't want to be engulfed by a woman. He doesn't want to be, he's worried about being loved by a woman or falling in love. So, and it is horrible because like it like reminds me a little bit of attachment theory too, which I just learned about this year, where it's like some people like avoid love and like push it away, and like then other people who like really want love and are like really attracted to it and want like anxious people will be drawn to those people, and the avoidant people will in some ways be drawn to the anxious people, and they'll go back and forth like pulling and pushing, and not never being satisfied, right? Like it's so sad. But anyway, yeah, I found this monologue both funny and sad at the same time. So it was like,
I think you're supposed to, because you're just like, it's all too real.
Yeah. Anyway, so seriously, if you ever go back and watch it, watch the part where they're doing the grapes and they're doing these monologues because it's fantastic.
All right.
I'm just saying. So now we leave the date and we go over to Richard's suicide. Trish finds Richard dead in the bathtub. He has cut his wrists.
Yeah.
And yeah. So Elaine didn't really directly kill Richard, but her potion maybe made him a little nuts, if we believe that her potion worked.
Yeah.
And then there's this like cutaway to like Trish goes to tea with Elaine, and there's berry sauce being poured over a cake, like which resembles blood. I don't know. It was a little cheap, but it kind of worked too.
And there was cake, so you're fine.
That's not one of the cakes I wanted to eat, though. It didn't look good to me. But the other cakes, yes. And now Trish they're back in the Victorian tea room in the scene, and Trish is wearing black now, so she's even more distant from the whole feminine aspect of this room, which I thought was interesting. Like her energy is totally out of sync with everyone else's. And Elaine like pretends to sympathize with Trish at first,
right?
Like being like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, your husband's dead." Like, never mind that I killed him, basically.
She's like, "Oh, but I like had sex with him behind your back and like whatever. Yeah. I'm such a good friend."
Yeah, so there's like she's pretending that she cares, but then she goes right into talking about her new love affair and talking about how great he is and how she's sure he's going to ask her to marry him any day now. And she shows the ring that she got at this mock wedding ceremony to Trish and says that he gave it to her, which that's an example of Elaine deluding herself. He didn't really give it to her. It was fake. Well, it was like
here you see that she's like really like not in reality, right? So she's super narcissistic. She's deluded. And she can't read a room either. Trish is like very sad. She probably wants to just sit down and have a meal with somebody who she thinks is her friend.
Yeah.
And who is not.
Yep. And so Trish tells Elaine also that she knows that Richard had an affair and she just wants to kill the person who had the affair and kill him too. And this end of this scene, Trish has taken Elaine's ring and put it on to try it on kind of sadly. And she then goes back to Elaine's house to give Elaine her ring back, but Elaine isn't there. And while she's there, Trish decides to try on Elaine's makeup and her wig, which I would not do in another woman's house.
No, but I think that she's trying to like gain some of the energy and power of Elaine. I think she comes in. This is a scene I thought was really interesting because like I could believe that this would happen. Like a woman who, has looked on somebody and looked at them and been like, I wish I was you, when she's at a very low point. Would look at her and be like, I wish I was you. I wonder if it's just the trappings. If I put myself into your trappings, like you literally put on the Love Witch outfit and felt something.
Yeah.
Right? And she's doing the same thing. She's like, I will become not myself. I will become this other person. And maybe then I'll like receive their power.
That's true. I did feel like really powerful when trying on the Love Witch outfit, but there was also part of me that was like looking in the mirror and being like, oh man, I look much more like Trish. Like it felt like the wig I got wasn't like good enough or something, and like the effect wasn't like glamorous enough. Like I didn't know how to do the makeup well enough. So like there was part of me that felt like powerful like the Love Witch, and there was another part of me that felt like I'm really secretly just like a Trish and I will always be a Trish. And there was like a sadness to that, even though I think like in real life we should all want to be more like Trish, like more ourselves and supportive of living our life for ourselves rather than revolving around a man,
But I think that Trish has that happen. I think as she's looking at herself, she realizes that she's not.
You think?
She's not that person, right? So it is that sadness. And then what happens? She looks over and sees something.
Yeah. Trish then sees Elaine's altar, which is just like in plain sight, and she sees Richard's picture on the altar and then explores more. She finds a bundle of things. Inside the bundle for Richard, there's like a letter that, you know, a little note he wrote to Elaine calling her like the most beautiful woman and stuff like that. And so Trish has found out the secret. And we see then Elaine in the background comes home and sees Trish, and she has like a knife and it looks like she's going to kill Trish. But then I don't understand this part. All of a sudden, Elaine just lets Trish win and like climb on top of her and start hitting her. Did you understand this?
No, and I think she had an athame. So I think she had an athame, and then I thought that it was gonna be like a ritual killing, and then like nothing, and I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
That was my feeling about.
Yeah, and athame is a ritual knife, just for anyone who doesn't know.
Right.
In the audience.
So that's
yeah.
what I thought she had, and she was like, oh, okay, well, she's gonna come and like kill her with that, and like, you know, have ritualistic power. But then I was like, that's not what happens. Okay.
Yeah, it was weird. That part was weird. They have a little tussle, but there's no like killing. And then and Elaine almost seems like she's threatened by Trish, which is interesting. And then Trish runs off with like this bundle for Richard, this like evidence, quote unquote. Oh,
I will
excuse
say
me.
quote unquote evidence.
Yeah, yeah. And then yeah, well, these cops were convinced by these engravings that the occult studies professor showed them. So who the fuck knows?
These, once again, if cops were like that, we'd all be in trouble. Okay.
Yes, yes. So then Elaine then wishes for Trish to crash, but I thought that was going to happen. I thought we were going to see a sequence where Trish crashed, but we don't in fact see such a sequence. Would have been kind of a badass sequence, even though I really like Trish. But then we get to like a bar scene set back in like the David Lynch bar. I'm just calling it the David Lynch bar from now on.
Cool. I'm down with that because I 100%, when she said that, I was like, yes, that's what that is.
Yeah, yeah. And in this scene, Griff confronts Elaine with her guilt. Even though these cops are completely incompetent, somehow they have managed to extract DNA and test it from the witch bottle, and they've connected it to
That's
Elaine.
right. They touched a bunch of stuff. They did not have a chain of. They didn't have a chain of stuff for any of the product, but like now we've got DNA. We're ready to rumble.
Basically. Yeah. And in the background of him confronting Elaine, you also see community members, like people in the bar talking about how the witches have been causing trouble and like they need to get the witches, whatever.
They like also talk about how they kind of like leave the witches alone. Like you hear murmurings of both kinds.
Yeah. And then Griff is basically confronting Elaine. Elaine is saying, "What's so wrong with the way I am? I would do anything for love." He says, "That's right. You'll never get enough love. Even when a man loves you so much it kills him." And, you know, I can see both of their points of view here. Yes. Like, but he's right. He's right about Elaine. He's like, she's never going to get enough. It's pretty clear.
No, she is the pit of despair.
Yeah. Griff is then going to arrest Elaine, but then one of the dancers at the club, or maybe just a waitress, but either way, she's resentful of the other dancers, yells that Elaine is the witch. She's the one who kills the teacher. And then all the guys in the bar start yelling, "Burn the witch, burn the witch." And like coming towards her, but simultaneously some of them are getting ready to rape her. You see them unbuckling their belt buckles and undressing her.
Right, because I think this is to show that like men will take power by controlling women, right? So they're going to rape her and take her power, and then they'll, you know, they kill her because like why wouldn't that's how you end somebody you're afraid of.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting association. Yeah, I thought it was an interesting association of like how they were talking before about the fear of women's sexuality and then burning them. Right. And like the men are...
And you did skip over that. So Elaine says in that scene, she says, "All my life I've been tossed in the garbage except for when men wanted to use me for my body." Right? And so that is an absolutely fantastic line for right here, because essentially you have men who are like, "I'm going to use you for your body. I'm going to come rape you." Right. And then I'm going to toss you in the garbage.
Yeah. There's so much to unpack in this scene. We don't even have the time to unpack it, but I thought it was interesting how Biller specifically had these men about to rape her. Mm-hmm. But it's not like one of those rape scenes where it's like icky and you're going to like not want to watch it. It's just a suggestion. And then she is not raped. Yeah. I want to make that clear. Because Griff does in fact rescue her from the crazy villagers at the David Lynch bar. He gets her into the cop car. The extras are really playing it for all it's worth, though, man. Those Burn the Witch people are really into it.
They were ready. They're here for it. They're like, "I'm here for it. I was also in the Renaissance section. I'm still living that life."
Did you recognize?
They were. People? I recognized a bunch of them. So.
Oh, no way. I wasn't that observant. Okay. Okay, so then Griff rescues her, and like weirdly, then he takes her to her house and he's sitting on her bed. And this part I didn't really get. Like, why is he not just taking her into the cop station? He hasn't, police station. He hasn't like drank one of her potions yet. Is it the ritual the Coven did to bind them together? Is he just really in love with her, even though he doesn't want to admit he is?
I don't know. I just thought that it moved the plot along.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I want an explanation.
Okay.
Anyway, he sits on her bed and he seems kind of dead inside. And Elaine then offers him her goblet. She's like kind of hopeful, but he shoves the goblet aside and it spills on the floor. And this is kind of a turning point for Elaine. Like this is like represents him turning her away.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also looking at her kind of hatefully, like with like disdain in his eyes. And this is so interesting. This part, when he's looking at her disdainfully, she starts like putting her arms up like a shield against that look from him. Like she cannot deal with the reality of his scorn, like at all.
Right. Well, and also there's in her witchcraftiness, there's power in the eyes. So like his eyes in his head are probably going doing whatever the heck the sound is, right? And he's just like, because I think this is about like that she has not been able to control or manipulate him, which is why she's intrigued by him, right? She wants what she cannot have.
I agree with that. Yeah, exactly. And then Elaine is standing at her mirror and she hears voices in her head of all her dead lovers saying, "I love you, Elaine. I love you, Elaine." Like Jerry and Richard and Wayne, all these guys. She hears their voices in her head. And then like you see the idea kind of formulating in her head, like, if Griff is dead, he can be one of these men to me again. He can return to the realm of
he'll love me.
Yeah, he can return to the realm of fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Biller also says that she sees Elaine as a sociopath in this section. Because Griff has disappointed her, she stops seeing him as a human, and that's what it meant. She said when you see the skull superimposed over Griff's head, she just sees him as an object now because he doesn't love her. He's no longer of use to her.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that's what she said in the commentary. I thought that was interesting too. And then, but Griff's behavior still perplexes me here. Griff just lies back on her bed. And so then Elaine approaches Griff with her athame, her ritual knife, and she stabs him exactly 3 times in the chest, just like the 3 of Swords tarot card. And then she looks over at her painting where the woman has taken the heart out of the chest, and she's basically enacted her painting. Like, so it's all these images, all the visual images of the movie are now coming together in this scene.
So this, the imagery of this is one of the things that stayed in my mind. Like this section right here is what like I would come back to over and over again. I just found that this imagery is so incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And it's like, also it's interesting. Like this movie, I think, is like kind of making fun of men for not wanting to be suffocated or engulfed, by, or weakened by love. But at the same time, it's sort of almost legitimizing their fear of love. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Like this woman will take your heart out of your chest, literally.
Right. And this is like so over the top. Like this is so over the top. This whole sequence is so incredibly over the top, and it's like super saturated, and there's like just a lot of like the music is like extra, and you're just like, whoa, okay. This is what an LSD death trip would be like.
Dude. Anyway, yeah, this is the most horrible horror scene of the movie. So this is where it becomes like a true horror movie. And as soon as Griff is dead, Elaine just sort of sits back happily with her bloody knife, and she's just visualizing Griff in his Renaissance costume, and he's saying, "I love you, Elaine. I've never loved anyone but you. I want to marry you." Mm-hmm. And then the movie ends just alternating between the dead body and her bloody knife, and then her fantasy where she's riding off on a horse with Griff. Not even just a horse. They've put like a unicorn horn on.
Yeah, it's totally a unicorn. It's totally a unicorn.
Oh my God. And it's just, yeah, it's so
and then,
much.
And honestly, there's honestly a part of me when I first watched this film, I was like, and then we're just going to show her like in a mental institution. And this was all like just fantasy.
No, I never thought
it wasn't. It wasn't. Yeah. But that's what I kind of expected. I was like, oh, okay. Because like it's such like when you first watch it, it's such a weird movie, right? Like it's out of time. It's like it doesn't like none of the stuff pieces per se fit together. It's all told from her perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely wonder what would happen next to Elaine though. Like I feel like she's inevitably going to be caught. Although given the cops in this story, who knows? Maybe she does manage to escape
from these cops.
She's just going to move on to like join some other coven on the East Coast or something.
She'll just drive away. She's like, I'm going to go to, can't wait to go to New Hampshire.
I'm going to Alaska where it's clean and pure and nobody
Right?
knows me. I don't know. Anyway, anyway, that's the end of the film. And Anna Biller says that while many audiences have viewed the film as a parody, Biller sees it as a tragedy. Quote, it is also about how men and women don't see eye to eye and how tragic that is. And it's also about a lot of the difficulties that women face in their lives. End quote. So Anna Biller took this film quite seriously. And I don't doubt that like part of Anna Biller's shadow self is also reflected in this movie. You
Yeah,
know? Yeah, I get
I can
that
see that.
sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there anything else you want to say about the movie in general before we go to double feature recommendations?
Like, although I've like bashed on this film a few times, like I said, it really did stick with me that I wanted to watch it a second time, and I did not mind watching it the third time to do this podcast. There is something beautiful and compelling about this movie, whether you like the dialogue or the plot or whatever. Like, or maybe you're not into costumes and you're super into that dialogue. I don't know, but there is something very compelling about all of the pieces of this fitting together.
Cool. Cool. Well, thanks for giving it a shot, Cybil, and thanks for coming on here also to talk about it because like
no,
having
no
yeah.
problem. I mean, it's a movie that deserves discussion. It really does.
Okay, so now we're going to do our double feature recommendations. And for my first double feature recommendation, I'm recommending one of the movies that Anna Biller cited as an inspiration for this movie, 1945's Leave Her to Heaven with Gene Tierney. And as we mentioned earlier in the episode, this is a movie about a woman who loves too much, leading to disaster. And when I say loves too much, it is very much in the Elaine love witch kind of way, where the love is more egotistical and selfish and manipulative. And it's less, less of that pure love.
Mm-hmm.
This is a woman who wants a man all to herself and tries to drive away anyone else in that man's life. And this is like this old, like black and white film, but like it felt very fresh and modern in a lot of ways. Like just in the kind of story it was telling. It went to some really dark places that I did not expect it to go. Okay. And it had like a real style about it. And I was satisfied by the whole experience of watching it. So if you want a movie that inspired this movie and is also a really kind of classic film that kind of ages well, like you do have to give it a little time to get into the story because it has a lot of clunkiness that you might see in classic films too. But once you get into the story, this is like a pretty compelling picture and I enjoyed it.
Okay.
Okay. And then my second double feature recommendation is 2007's Viva, Anna Biller's other feature film that she wrote, directed, and did basically everything else for. In this one, she also appears as the main character. And the main character is a woman who is kind of experiencing the sexual revolution. And the reason Anna Biller made the film is she kind of wanted to make a statement about how the sexual revolution was actually very harmful to women in a lot of ways. Men ended up getting a lot of what they wanted in their fantasies, and women ended up being abused by the patriarchy in new and different ways. And when you watch the movie, it really does bring up a lot of like, good arguments for that, or good evidence for that argument. But it also has like fabulous costumes and visual pleasure like you find in The Love Witch. And this movie is definitely not as polished as The Love Witch, but I found it very interesting nonetheless. And I enjoy just watching the working of Anna Biller's mind, as expressed in film.
I bet. She does have a very interesting take on things.
Yeah, and she wasn't a bad actress either. I thought she did a really good job in her own picture as well.
Wonderful.
And then my final double feature recommendation is another sort of modern feminist horror film. This one is actually directed by a man, Edgar Wright, and that's Last Night in Soho from 2021. And I'm recommending this film because it's also very highly stylized, not as much as The Love Witch, but also like beautiful costumes, beautiful sets. It has feminist themes and female protagonists. And it's sort of like, I can't say much more about why I chose it with The Love Witch without giving away some plot points. Let's just say that like it has similar intriguing female characters in the movie. And Anna Biller also really loved this movie. She actually mentioned it on Twitter when it came out. So I think she would approve of this particular double feature.
All right. Well, I will, if I do watch it, I will check back in with you.
All right.
So I have mine, and I don't think you can talk about witch movies at all without talking about The Craft from 1996, because that movie to this day, they had a remake of it, I'm pretty sure. Because, yeah, because it was that it was that intense where people were like, oh my God, witches are a thing and women are powerful. So, and The Craft is known for having like very accurate witchery, because it did. This is the 1996 version. I did not see the remake, but I was pretty sure there was one.
Yeah, I did see the remake. It had David Duchovny, so I'm kind of surprised you didn't see it.
because I was like, well, how do you remake the original Craft? I'm like, that's like remaking Rocky or something. Like, it's just weird.
Yeah, it wasn't really as good, but yeah.
Yeah, it would have been better if they made like a TV series out of it. Like, I'm watching the Craft TV series. I'm here for that.
You will watch any TV series. That's basically a rule, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Anyway. Or you will prefer things to be a TV series.
That's I will. I love TV series. They have so much more time to tell story. I appreciate a good story. Okay, so the next one I have is Rebecca, which is by Hitchcock. And I did notice a lot of Hitchcockian kind of feel to this film, but Rebecca stood out to me a lot because it is about like two women, and it's about kind of their relationship and how like the differences of like what is madness. And so that's why I really thought Rebecca would be a good one for this one.
Interesting.
And yeah, if you've never seen Rebecca, I think it's one of my favorites. I know that he, talked about, Vertigo and stuff like that, but Rebecca is one of my favorite Hitchcock films.
Nice.
And then the next one is a very obscure one called The House of Tolerance by Bertrand Bonello, from 2011. Have you ever seen this one?
I've never even heard of this movie, and I actually did like go and look it up, a synopsis before we recorded, because it looked intriguing. So tell about this and why it's connected.
So this is about so first of all, Bertrand Bonello, he does these very sumptuous like films that are incredibly designed. So, and I could tell that this film, Love Witch, was incredibly designed, right? From the detail of the cinematography to the every piece of the costume to like the sets. And this is very much how he does his stuff. And then this is about a like prostitution house. I don't know, somewhere in time, that's older times. It's about this prostitution house and how men and women view each other. And it's really a very feminist film, in my opinion, even though it's about prostitution. And I you don't want to talk about it too much because you will give away many of the like surprises that happen. But It is a beautiful to watch film. I think it's incredibly well directed and designed. And it is a film that, in my opinion, stays with you and haunts you a little bit.
Nice. I'm looking forward. This is definitely going on my list. I say this about a lot of movies, but this one intrigued me like immediately I looked at it. So awesome.
Yeah, I was surprised you hadn't seen it because I was like, oh, this is such a Jennifer film.
I was in Korea in 2011, so I didn't encounter a lot of things at that time. So
yeah. And it's not one that's like, I think easily findable. I don't know if it's like out there, like as like a big film everywhere though. I mean, he's a very famous director.
Okay. Very cool. All right, everyone. So we've given you some ideas for double features. We've given you a lot of ideas about The Love Witch. Thank you for listening to this episode, and please seek us out at everyromcom.com and send us feedback at everyromcom.com. And Cybil, been a delight as always.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.